Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome in on a Monday morning. How about those San Antonio Spurs? Spurs and Knicks in the NBA Finals. San Antonio takes down the Thunder in Game 7. Don't play with your food. You can't win all the Game 7s. 2 out of 3 ain't bad, but that's the one that got away from the Thunder. We'll get into this more later in the show. I just think there's so many interesting things to talk about in this game. Obviously, Wembayama. Awesome. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, awesome. But for all the people, and I'm on this list, for all the people who are upset about guys sitting out games and the stars don't play and you tune in to see, the top 2 or 3 guys on each team, I think we're going to have way more of that. I think the lesson from this series is sit your guys in your regular season, keep them fresh, keep them healthy. If they get hurt, get them healthy, get them all the way healthy. Don't play through stuff. Be healthy for the playoffs. Because early in this series, the Spurs were missing a couple guys. And most importantly, they're missing Fox. And, they lost 2 of the first 3 games. Now, late in the series, the Thunder are missing key players. Jalen Williams, their second leading scorer, and then A.J. Mitchell, who was giving them quite a boost off the bench. Shout out to my fellow Gaucho. And what happens with Williams out? San Antonio gets Fox back. They win 3 of the last 4. The lesson for the NBA is be healthy. Because when you're not healthy, you're in trouble. So they're going to be sitting guys. Now, for all of you who think they just take too many threes, when they're missing threes, why don't they do something else? The lesson is shoot threes. If you make them, you can win. If you don't, you lose. But if you don't shoot them, you don't win. The Thunder shot more free throws and more twos. And they made more free throws and they made more twos. But the Spurs shot more threes and made more threes, so they won Game 7. The lesson from Game 7 is shoot more threes. Now, you can wish it was another lesson, but that is the lesson. that is what teams are going to take away. And for everybody who hates tanking, the lesson from this series is tanking works. First off, look at the 2 teams who are there. Pretty much me, PK, Yak, 95% of you listening all thought it was going to be the Spurs versus the Thunder in the conference finals because they drafted well, they tanked, they had a lot of high picks. They hit on high picks also, in some cases, hit on some, medium picks. People are going to tank. The Spurs, their 3 best players were the number 1 pick, the number 2 pick, and the 4 pick. And now they win? Yeah, people are going to keep tanking despite the new rules. It may look a little different, but it's still going to be tanking. Got to give it up to those young guys, though, for San Antonio. My gosh. Really strong game from Castle. Really strong game from Harper. Very impressed. Castle had like 20 turnovers in the first 2 games, but he really tightened up the act and handled the ball well at the end of the series. If he turned it over like that, like he did in games 1 and 2, in 6 and 7, they'd have lost the series. But he didn't, and they won. Great win for the Spurs. Very impressive. Very entertaining game. All right, we'll have more on this as we progress throughout the morning. Take a break. When we come back, Jason Batacao, Salt Lake Tribune, writing a story on what the state auditor has to say about the Utes deal with Otro Capital. We will get to that next. Stay with us. Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jason Batacao joined me on Friday to talk about the story that he wrote in the Salt Lake Tribune about the state auditor saying there's really, really significant risk to this deal with Otro Capital. Now, subsequently, we have seen reports here that the Utes are going to let some people go as they move into this new enterprise with this venture capital. And there are people already, already, see, I told you, immediate layoffs. I think the reaction from the U would be, well, some of the things the athletic department used to do, this new company we formed is now going to do it. So they're going to hire new people, so we don't need those people over here. I think that would be their response. Will there be more layoffs? Now, they are doing layoffs, and they just paid Kyle $13 million to go away. And Jason's story talks about the rapidly disappearing rainy day fund. He'll get into those numbers here in a second. And, it is something. That they let a coach go, win his coach in school history, 11-2 last year, and you got to pay $13 million to go away when you're already in the red and you're blowing through your rainy day fund. You couldn't wait till the contract was up? Who gave him the contract? The guy paying the buyout? That doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, they really need Morgan to win big right out of the gate, and I'm not sure that's a fair expectation, but we're not really in the point in college sports where fair expectations are a thing, so I guess it is what it is. All right, here's Jason with me on Friday right here on The Zone. DJ and PK. PK with a little bit of time off. He'll be back next week. We're joined now by Jason Batacao, Utah Utes writer for the Salt Lake Tribune. Jason, good morning.
Good morning, man. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Look at you, Jason. You got a good story. The paywall is down. You're on the radio, increasing your profile. This is a good day to be Jason Batacao. Am I right?
Yeah, and it's Friday, and it's a Friday.
And see, look at another thing. Look at you go.
Yeah, it's a Friday. The weekend's coming up after a short week, so can't complain, man. Feeling good. It's summertime. The sun's out, so yeah, tons of good things going on, I could say. So yeah.
I want to dive into your story in the private equity deal. Everybody's talking about it. Good job by you getting to this story and getting it out there. And people need to know, some of the limitations that you run into sometimes, but not all the time when you're reporting, and the public doesn't really know how this works. So you're able to quote the Utah State Auditor here. Did you get to interview the auditor, or were you replying on a summary of written remarks to get the quotes?
Yeah, so I had obtained a letter from a source kind of outlining and detailing a May 19th letter that the auditor had sent the Board of Trustees just about her concerns, just about the private equity deal. She had also hosted a 4 o'clock p.m. Press conference yesterday at the Capitol regarding MIDA. I ended up going up there and asking her a few questions, but that'll be in a further story either today or tomorrow. But yeah, all the quotes and the things that I had were from a letter that I obtained from a source, and and it became public, and I'm glad it did become public. So yeah, that was kind of the process of it all. Nothing too crazy.
Okay, so the big takeaway here is that the auditor is concerned that the money that comes in from Otro Capital will largely be used for, I guess, what we could refer to as day-to-day expenses, as opposed to like something like redoing the Huntsman Center. Is that the takeaway you got?
Yeah, I would say that I think that based off of the letter, I think she's concerned about a lot of things. I think she's concerned that the money that is going to be going into the deal won't be enough to, I guess, fix Utah's current financial situation. And to be fair, I mean, the financial situation that the University of Utah is facing is kind of a reality that a lot of, state institutions are facing across the board. I mean, there's, schools that are having to pay $20.5 million each year now to compete in the NCAA. Honestly, more with schools like LSU and other places having 40 million plus rosters. And so, the crunch for money has been real in the NCAA. And the U has, publicly said that, they think that this would fix a lot of their NIL problems, or maybe not even their NIL problems, but just, financial problems regarding the athletic department. Really what the state auditor said in the letter said that this will just be a short-term Band-Aid, and she doesn't view it as a fix for a long-term solution, as they say it is. So that's kind of what it went down to. She also mentioned that, transparency is a big issue. And I think a lot of people have felt that, not me, obviously, but just state officials. I think when the deal was first finalized, there was a few state senators that I had talked to personally, and they had mentioned to me, there was no heads up, there was no, prior conversation, and now that the deal has kind of been approved by the Board of Trustees, there's not been any real information out there publicly about, why, they had said it was going to be finished in Q1. It's now been 6 months. There's been no, public information released about, what the financial totals will be, what the stake will be. And so, I think this letter's kind of the first, real public, I guess, transparency regarding an elected state official. I know Dave Checkett's kind of went on the record with, I think it was the front office sports or something, and he had kind of publicly criticized the deal. But this is an elected official, and her doing it in a letter to the board of trustees in an oversight of several iterations of the deal that she has seen based off of what she wrote in the letter. So that's kind of the broad jibber jabber that I'm giving on it. I'm probably talking too much.
No, you're doing fine. The Utah State Auditor, so they issue this. Now, what do you think what has anyone indicated to you as you talk to state senators in that, what the next steps might be as far as what impact might this have on the school president, on regents, on state legislators, and how might it affect the process of, as you say, getting this Otro deal across the finish line, which it's, kind of done, but it's not completely finished. So what kind of impact can this have?
Yeah, I think it's just a push for more transparency. I think, on the University of Utah's end, they're not going to let anything impact the deal from getting done. And maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think Utah's too far along in negotiations. They've already publicized it pretty deeply. And there's an indication that, it will go into effect on July 1, barring, any breakdowns of the negotiations, based off of what I've been told. And so, I think on the University of Utah's end, this is just a push from the state, and the state auditor for more transparency, and maybe a potential, overlooking of the deal. But I think, from the University of Utah's end, I don't think it changes much for them, honestly. I think that they have to, in the short term, get this deal done because, again, I don't think that they can afford to financially and fiscally to, not make this deal. They need an influx of cash. The cost of running an athletic department, if you want it to be, extremely competitive as they do at the University of Utah, especially with their football program, it costs a lot of money. And that doesn't just start with the football program. It starts with women's sports. It starts with the Olympic sports. And, we've seen programs across the nation. I mean, Utah, even last year, that they cut in Olympic sports. Obviously, they cited it for conference reasons. But, the squeeze of running an athletic department is so tight right now that you need as much money as you can get. A lot of places have tried going to the state for more money, or they've upped donor coffers, or, and not every place is the SEC or the Big Ten or Ohio State or Michigan. That's just the reality of a lot of places in the NCAA. And so I don't think on Utah's end it impacts anything. I do think it will provide more transparency to the public, because, the deal in the eyes of the auditor is a short-term Band-Aid for the long-term fiscal issues that the U might be facing. So that would be my comment on it. I know I'm sounding like a politician right now.
Well, you got to have a future, man. Maybe it's politics. Who knows? I think that as I look at it and as I talk to people, and we probably talk to some of the same people, but we also probably talk to some different people. And it doesn't matter if it's coaches, administrators, boosters, whoever might have insight into the future of Utah athletics, ex-players for that matter. To me, the Utah football program, and I could be wrong about this because football is changing pretty quickly, but unless they get in the Big Ten, now if they get into the Big Ten or the SEC, the numbers change pretty quickly. So there's that. But if they don't get into the Big Ten or the SEC for whatever reason, including the Big Ten or SEC just flat out don't expand, I mean, whatever it is.
Right.
But as long as they're in the Big 12, I view football as largely a mature business. I don't see where there's a big pile of cash waiting for the Utes unless they get into one of those two big leagues because they got more money and you'll get more money in that case. But I do see if there's growth for the U, to me, it's about redoing the Huntsman Center. I've watched the Delta Center get rebuilt. I've watched what the Millers have done with America First Field, the soccer stadium in Sandy, and they can create a lot more money in the same space with a remodel of the Huntsman Center. And it would certainly impact men's basketball. If men's basketball is even halfway decent. They don't have to return to glory, but just being a tournament team that goes out in the first round, they can make a lot more money, especially if they redo the arena with premium seating and luxury suites. Maybe it would even make a little more money for volleyball and women's basketball. But aside from that, I don't see how they could take this Otro money and grow it and turn it into more money so that they pay Otro back and so that they have more money to work with, except for they could unlock cash in the Huntsman Center. Do you see it the same way? Have you heard the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the university and my sources have been pretty, indicative on renovating the Huntsman Center in the near future. That's going to cost a lot of money. My bet would be most, or maybe even I don't think most of the money from the Otro Capital deal is going to go toward the Huntsman Center. I think that would come from a state bond or donors or, a pieces of such a thing. I don't think they went into this with the Otro Capital, private equity fund and were like, this is fully going to be for, the Huntsman Center. I think it's going to be servicing debt payments. I think it's going to be, helping fund revenue sharing and all of those things above. But no, I would agree. I think the Huntsman Center is very outdated. I mean, and to your point about the Big Ten and maximizing on revenue, I think, they haven't maximized on revenue and at the Huntsman Center and with men's basketball. I mean, there's so many open seats. The concessions are outdated. The concourse is packed. I've only seen, very few sold out games at the Huntsman Center, and I've only been here for 2 years. So, I've been here kind of in maybe you could say the dark days of Utah basketball. But when it's sold out, it's a great venue, but that doesn't happen often. And that's because of a lot of factors, but you downsize the arena, maybe you get more luxury suites. Some of the stuff that they've done at Rice Eccles has led to, more revenue for them. And I would agree with that. And I think that's also part of the Otro Capital deal. I mean, you're handing off, a minority stake to Otro and, the LLC that they're creating, Crimson Brand Partners, to kind of, upscale their ticketing, their in-game experience. And part of that is like, maybe they do charge more for tickets or concessions or et cetera, but the in-game experience is so good now, is kind of the sell or maybe what they're targeting for, that, you can maximize those profits and revenue. And so, I would agree with you on that. And I think, they brought a proposition to the Board of Trustees several months ago. And, I've kind of been indicated that something surrounding the Huntsman Center will come in the next few months. I don't know when that is. I can't tell you because it's kind of been, delayed here and there. But, the Huntsman Center has to be renovated 100%.
Yeah. You mentioned you've been here a couple of years, Jason. For people who don't know, you came from the great state of Oklahoma. Earlier this week, we had Barry Trammell on. My guess is you know exactly who Barry Trammell is. Yeah, I thought you were going to say that.
I love Barry. That is my guy. Me and Barry don't go way back, but Barry probably knows who I am. Barry's a great guy. I love Barry. He's one of the funniest, best guys that you will meet in the industry. He's always funny. He's always got something to say. He's very well plugged in. He's just a great guy. I love Barry Trammell. If I were to paint a picture of the prototypical Oklahoman, Barry Trammell would be the guy that I would put on a picture and put it on a mural and be like, this is what an Oklahoman is. So, that's Barry Trammell for sure.
Barry, last time he was on just earlier this week, he's a great combination of, like you say, there's a lot of sports knowledge, right? There's just a massive reservoir, the history, memorable quotes, memorable games, but he's really good at doing radio. He's done radio and TV in Oklahoma. He's really good as far as the stories and the entertainment factor. He was lecturing us on Rodgers and Hammerstein because he said, everyone in Oklahoma knows about Rodgers and Hammerstein. Why don't you guys? We haven't lived in Oklahoma.
Oh, man, there's so many things that Barry can lecture you about. I mean, if you sit in a press box with Barry Trammell, even if you're 5 seats away, you'll be engaged in a very philosophical conversation about something random. It's great. But I was talking about Barry Trammell with one of my he works at the Oklahoma, and his name's Colton Soley. I was talking to him about Barry Trimble the other day, and he was just like, yeah, Barry was saying something about this, and I just was laughing it up, and I was like, oh, that's Barry. So Barry's a good guy for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe you should ask him about some Oklahoma things like massive gas stations like On Q or 7-Eleven or even Brahms. Ask him about the Brahms drive-through. Or just Brahms in general, Brahms tables. He'll give you a full spiel on that. He's given me that a few times.
All right, there is Jason Batacao, Salt Lake Tribune, and he mentioned follow-up stories. You can go check them out. The paywall is down at the Salt Lake Tribune. Take a break. When we come back, Bronco Mendenhall. Oh, the old dog learns new tricks. All this NIL, all these people transferring. How do you keep up with all these players? And Bronco will explain next. Stay with us. Change is coming. And that is why we're having our next guest on, Bronco Mendenhall, Utah State football coach. Coach, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. How are you?
I am doing well this morning. You know, you're one of my favorite coaches for a reason you may not know. You may not even remember this, Bronco, but I'm going to go ahead and tell this story. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
When I'm playing high school basketball, the coach will send you to the game and get you all fired up. He'll turn around and he'll pat you on the butt. That's not something that happens a lot in life, right? I graduated from high school. I stopped playing basketball. We're done with the butt patting. For like 30 years, one coach has patted me on the butt. Do you know who that was, Bronco?
Not sure.
It was Bronco Mendenhall.
What?
Do you have no recollection of this?
I don't.
Okay, so it's because of a specific interview, and I think it's because for 2 minutes I rescued you from a mind-numbing series of questions about, the health of some outside linebacker or something. And you do the media thing because it's part of the job, but it's not your favorite part of the job. And it's not your second favorite part of the job, but you do it because it's part of the job. So at one point you wrote a book, and the book got done. It was very close to being marketed. It was actually up on the web. Somebody found it. It got passed along to me, and someone I was working at Channel 2 at the time said, hey, you got to go down and interview Bronco about this. And you were in the indoor facility. It was late in the season. It was dark out. It was cold. And so there were the typical questions. And I asked you that, and you got like 3 questions on it. And I left to go talk to somebody else and ask them mind-numbing questions about an outside linebacker. And as I walked, you I don't know if you're trying to slap me on the back or something. I just had the feeling you were like, oh, thank goodness. 3 minutes of something borderline interesting. Thank you for saving me. So
I appreciate you remembering, and man, that's great. I'll have to make a note to do that more often.
No, I got to earn it. I don't want anything gratuitous, Bronco.
Yes, you do.
I got to earn it.
Yes, you do.
So I want to have you on because we're hearing so much about AI. We're hearing so much about computers. And in full disclosure, there's a guy who you probably only work with peripherally because he does more of the PR for this company, this tool Answers, that you're using. And I've known him since college radio, and he's worked for the Pac-12 and the 49ers. We've always stayed in touch. He's hilarious. Probably puts on a professional appearance around you, but that's total fraud, I'm here to tell you. He's hilarious. But he said, your boy Bronco is using his computers. And we all hear about these coaches. I grew up with Don Coryell at San Diego State, went to San Diego Chargers. I don't know if you ever met him, but you probably know the name. He and Joe Gibbs in Washington, when Joe Gibbs was winning Super Bowls, these guys are famous for sleeping in the office 3 hours a night, and they're in there working. And even 14-year-old me was like, that sounds crazy. Who would want to do that? You sound like the polar opposite of that. Does that still exist in the coaching world? Because you've gone the other way from it, and we'll get to how you're doing that here in a second.
Certainly, it's still the way, and it's one of the few professions. I'm sure there are others that I don't know about, but it's one of the few professions where people brag about how many hours they work, like it is a badge of courage or a badge of honor or something that societally increases status. And I hear it from my colleagues frequently as head coaches or as staffs. My staff is working and our, so-and-so, my coordinators, they don't go home till Thursday. They sleep in their offices Tuesday and Wednesday. And I think what the message is supposed to be is how committed and how driven and how determined they are to win. And I think all those things are true. I do. But I also think there's an indictment toward inefficiency and really poor organizational design. And quite frankly, really poor time management. And I think you can be radically driven and fiercely committed and have amazing win-loss records and do it smarter, more effectively, and quite frankly, more efficiently, that allows more autonomy, more purpose, more mastery, and quite frankly, better results. And I don't know of many others. I've never asked you, and I've never heard you say, yeah, I'm doing an amazing job. I work 17 hours every week, and my peers are only working 15 hours. And like that's supposed to now have me think that you're better than.
Yeah.
And in our industry, much like you just said, along the way, somewhere culturally, that was now viewed as superior or desirable, and maybe even necessary. And I'd like to push back on the necessary part. While certainly my record isn't perfect, sustainability and number of wins and et cetera, in terms of objective metrics, where you're looking to build trust, and trust is a lot of times done with objective metrics, right? Not just opinion. And I think you can be, and I think moms are amazing at this. They have so many different things going. I don't ever hear them brag about how many hours they spent working to develop their kids. You do what you have to do, but they're also looking for every chance possible to renew, every chance possible to connect with a friend, every chance possible to find a date night with the husband, every chance possible to serve in their church calling. They're looking to do it all, and they're viewing that as desirable. And that to me is a more comprehensive and effective way to live and also to perform.
So back in the day, coaches were staying up all hours to cut up film and to get all the situational stuff. What does this opponent do on third and short, third and long? Make sure you got your eyes on all the trick plays, right? Both sides of the ball. And now fast forward this computerized world. So you're using this program Answers, and I've heard about schools turning it down. You've embraced it, and it kind of falls into the old dog, new tricks. You might think, oh, there's some up-and-coming coach who has embraced this new computer program, but you feel like you get all the prep work done and get out of the building.
Yeah, and really the goal, and I think I'd frame that is I don't want us out of the building unless our accomplishments and our framed tasks and our rhythm and cadence is exactly dialed in, and we're completely prepared within what was assigned for that day within our weekly plan, which will help us achieve our outcome. And I'm always looking for ways that speed up processes with more efficiency, more accuracy, more productivity, and more yield, right? And so that happens through the categorization of work. And so you probably have heard this before, but at the top level, there's what's called competitive work, right? Each job, my job has a level of competitive work. Underneath that has competitive enabling work. Underneath that is business essential work. Really, underneath business essential, there's compliance work. The rest of it's to be eliminated. I only want to do things that make a difference in my job that work, and I don't want to do work beneath what's going to make the most difference. So to your point, and what Answers and other tools that the industry has, the speed, the efficiency, the accuracy, helping us be nimble and being able to adjust in real time and make decisions ahead of schedule and shave time to then make the decisions necessary on game planning, which leads to execution, which leads to outcome. If that's working more accurately, more precisely, more efficiently and faster, man, I'm all for that, because that affects the bottom line. It also affects quality of life. And so that program is allowing more of our staff and more of our organization to be working on their competitive work with accurate background, sub-background work that provides us the framework then to make the decisions on.
You, as you point out, there's objective metrics. You can't cut back on the work and start losing games. That doesn't work.
Right.
But you want at BYU, right. You want at Virginia, turn those programs around. New Mexico was very short stay, but you could see progress being made there.
Yep.
Inevitably, your guys get hired away. Their schools with more money. You just lost your offensive coordinator to Utah, for example.
Yep.
I was surprised.
Second one.
Yeah. Okay. I was surprised that one of the advantages of this is you don't lose all that institutional knowledge. You can hold on to that with the program. And this is a way to give you an edge, even though your coaches are getting hired away, which is what you want because it means you're winning. But this is a way to help you shorten the cycle when you have to bring someone new in and get them up to speed.
Listen, and part of the world of college football now is transitory and change. Our roster will have 53% of it meaning there's new player, 53% of our roster will be new. That's
Yeah.
fairly typical in college football. I can't tell you the exact number, but my guess is between 50 and 60% of most college teams right now are turning over.
Mm-hmm.
And so if that happens, the guiding principles of the program, the culture of the program, the leader of the program, if that can remain constant, you have an anchor, right? Then anyone coming in is onboarded into that system. If you have leadership changes, besides the cultural and the technical and the tactical, you also have the processes that are anchors. And so what a program like Answers can do is, this is the way that we gather data. This is the way that we formulate game plans. This is the way that we do it. And so that allows someone new. Again, I lost my coordinator, Jason Beck, to Utah from New Mexico.
Yep.
Kevin McGiven just left. So that's fine. Robert now and I is back with me. When they come into our program, here is the way that, and I don't think there's a better way in college football. And they learn then an existing system, are onboarded to it, rather than us have to then have a brand new system. Besides the schematics, we then save time because of the existing processes that have already been proven, tried, and continue to be updated and become more effective. And that allows a baseline for them to operate from, which makes us faster, and it gives them more, makes them more comfortable. It also makes them more effective. So it's an anchor, another anchor, right? Besides the leadership of the head coach, besides the principles of the program, besides the cultural elements that are anchored, there's processes that are anchored that they can be onboarded to, which allows the program actually to be consistent regardless of the personnel that's coming in or going out.
Does this help you in the transfer portal? Does Answers actually help you break down other players at other schools? Because I've always wondered, how in the world are you keeping track of a couple thousand players? Some of them will go in the portal, some don't, and you don't know who. And then you don't know what positions you need to backfill because you're not sure exactly who's leaving you. It seems like that's a mountain of work.
Well, so here's the thing regarding that, and I won't speak to that exact point. What I will say is if your staff has designed more of a SEAL team than an infantry, which I prefer, I'd rather fewer people to be stretched than a lot of people sitting around. But what that allows is, when you have tools, it allows that work to be done without having to add an extra person or staff to do that work, right? So I can have an amazing system basically doing the work of a department overseen by an individual, not five, right? An individual who's mining that, and all that work is being done at a really high level where we can be lean and nimble and efficient as a staff. And that's, I prefer that design. The next part that you brought up is with players coming and going, as you mentioned, the transfer portal. This is similar in the NFL. Many systems in the NFL, offensively and defensively, are similar, not identical, but there's a design element when you think about franchises and a workforce moving amongst franchises. The faster they can get up and running, the faster they can play and perform. And so as a new player comes in, what this allows us to do is to streamline our assignments based on accuracy of background knowledge, to then only ask them to do things that we know will work with methodologies that are already really well defined, so they can play the position at a new place in a new scheme faster than if we didn't have all the knowledge and system to support that. Because who has time now in the transfer portal to bring a player in to develop him and have him then yield year three? That's the exact opposite of why you use the portal. So the systems allow us to have faster onboarding and execution, which is then yield, which then is the return on investment in the portal.
You deal so much with high schools. Do they use this? I mean, there are coaches out there who are like teaching classes. When do they have time to break down film? Because the thing I see watching high school sports is all these high school teams today could crush my high school teams. They could crush my friend's soccer team. They could crush my friend's football team. They could crush my basketball team. It's getting better by leaps and bounds.
Well, one of the coolest things is when I was coaching at BYU, before I was watching the quality of high school football each year just take off. We had really good in-state college coaches, and those programs were really thriving. And you could just see this transformation. I leave and go to Virginia, step away from coaching at New Mexico, and I came back. And what a refreshing, just amazing view to me to see Utah high school football from what I had seen to now where it is. The emphasis, the quality, the coaching. But to your point, I can't tell you how many are using this particular product or products like it, but what I can say is if they're not, man, with teaching classes or teaching driver's ed or whatever other things, right, they have going, and right, some are not even working at the school. They have a regular job, and then they come to coach their high school team. The efficiency and the reduction of manpower with increased results, man, that's a desirable place to be. Now, I know NFL teams are, and I know college teams are. At the high school level, I'm certain there are some, whether it's this product or not, but if they're not, and if they're not, it's probably the administrations are like, man, I'm not sure the cost and et cetera. That's absorbed so quickly in terms of the maximization of the performance of the leader and the players and sustainability for that leader to do the job. It allows, man, a chance for the program to grow and mature. Or you can just hire more people, but they actually have jobs and other things to be doing, right? And so who then is doing all the data analytics work to make the right decisions? And so I think it's a really wise investment, especially with underfunded, under-resourced, or leaders that are really stretched thin.
I am stunned. I went to high school football games a couple nights a week for a long time, reporting and gathering highlights and coming back. And then I moved into a role. I was in studio more, and I could see a lot more games because so many games are streamed now. And I was watching schools like Morgan and Richfield, 3A and 4A schools, and I was blown away by how good the football was. Really. And the kids may not be big enough, and they may not be fast enough for you. Those kids may only come along. But, like, the football's good. Like, the football's really good.
You know, it is good, and I would use the analogy. There's amazing FCS programs. There's amazing Division II programs. You see some of the best coaches now that have had success at Division II. All they need is an opportunity to scale their organization, right? They already know how to win, and now they're given more resources. The scale changes, but they still have similar results. The grit, the determination, the fortitude, and some of the cultural values that exist in Richfield or Morgan or Beaver. You know, as you think about places like that, with the right leader, the right coaching, there's some cultural areas that communities bring that add a competitive advantage of really hard work, right? And self-reliance. And these kids that, I don't know, they've been doing chores since 6, driving the truck around. They can't even see over the dashboard, you know, and they're feeding 200 head of cattle. And now they're given the right coach and the right resources. They become pretty formidable. And that can happen inner city as well, right? So I guess my point is what we're talking about allows the structural part of a program to bring to life the cultural part and allows the leader to really bring that all together to have the results that the community wants, but also the administration, but also the parents and the players.
So do you use this now that you're in a new league? You have a lot of new opponents, new coaches. Some of them will be familiar, but some of them will not be familiar. Some of the programs may have been really off your radar. I don't know how much you were following Texas State. Obviously, San Diego State and Fresno State are making the move with you, as is CSU and Boise. So have you used it to dope out these new teams and try to figure out what it is you're going to be facing in the fall?
Sure. In 2 capacities, we've used it to drill down deeper on existing teams that we know. So you can even ask more specific questions because the reference point we have is already further along. With the new opponents, we've used it to catch us up to what do they do. And then after contemplation, we basically assign an entire week through summer, June and July on each new opponent. And so then we can ask questions deep enough. So we use it first to get up to speed. Then after contemplation, we use it further to then drill down deeper. Once we have a baseline understanding, all that is so fast and so accurate that allows then when we play that opponent in season, we're starting from a point of reference. Once we've added the new data, once we've seen them play this year, that's being updated, by the way, after every play in real time. We don't have to go back and do that. That's happening while they're playing. And it's already done by the time we hit the opponent. And so, again, for someone in a program and an organization that chooses that Sunday to be off, right, we need to maximize every second of every day in the work week. And that's already we don't have to now use additional time to do that because it's already being updated in real time.
Yeah, even the teams you know well, like San Diego State, I mean, their defense was really good. So naturally, Texas Tech came in and took a guy. A&M came in and took a guy. Nebraska came in and took 2 players, plus they had some seniors. So even a team you're familiar with is going to have a very, very new look.
That's it. And so you hit on a really good point. the known teams and the known coaches have a known style, but they're still radically different because of the number of players that are changing in today's game. And so really researching, and there's all kinds of analytics that you can have on each player now. So besides the schematics that we've already talked about and the decision making, we're also using it for personnel assessment. And just like, man, the NFL, they do their research for sure, but the amount of volume of knowledge and cut-ups and film and run plays, pass plays, plays they're beat, plays they're successful, exterior plays, internal plays, pulling plays. You can see a player from every possible angle in any possible cut-up. All you have to do is just ask, and here it comes in real time. And you can make those assessments, and then in addition to the schematic and the overall knowledge, those two things come together. My job then is to make the right decisions, schemes, and strategies to leverage and exploit those things. But it's not because we don't have enough information. It's because I will have made a poor decision on just not applying it correctly, or we didn't design something well enough to take advantage of.
Yeah. Well, Bronco, thanks for pulling the curtain back, because I think we all wonder how this works with so many players changing, so many coaches changing. How do you try to keep some kind of competitive edge and not work around the clock? Because that's just going to burn people out. That's not going to yield great results in the long run. That can only work in the short run.
Well, I think one of the things that all anyone really has to do is just look at the number of athletic directors retiring or stepping down. I mean, it's not hard to see what's happening, and quite frankly, to have longevity as the head coach. I'm one of the oldest now in college football. Yeah. Most don't last because they're not successful enough to last. Many don't last because of the way and what the lifestyle requires, and the stress and all that. It just is something they either can't do any longer or choose not to do any longer, or they can't make sense of doing it. And so many in the industry, especially in today's landscape, are just saying, they're questioning, can I do this any longer, and is it worth it? If any leader in any industry is at that space, resources help. That doesn't necessarily just mean more manpower. It also means the right systems. And that can allow possibly a hair more renewal, right? I didn't say weeks worth, but it can allow a hair more. Yeah. It can allow some more balance. Yeah. It can allow a bit more, and all those things add up. And the industry right now is probably, and I can't verify this, but at least at the athletic director level, might be losing more than I've ever seen in my career of the volume of turnover at that level. Yeah.
I always wondered why Bob Stoops walked away. He was such a good coach, but he walked away, and he's not coming back. he'll do the UFL thing in the spring, but that's a different beast. So.
Easy to understand from my seat why. And there's different personalities and different principled leaders that environments have different effects on. And, if there are coaches that are really trying to do it the right way, right meaning character development, strong moral compass, teaching values, the development of a human being, comprehensive. I don't get asked about academics very much on official visits by parents or players. I don't get asked about comprehensive development. How many service hours do you give? What's your team's GPA? How many kids are you putting? What are the jobs the kids are getting? The things that are a little bit longer horizoned, I rarely get asked now. Usually what parents and players want to know, certainly the depth, what their role might be, and how much money. Yeah. And so if you think about why you might coach or why you might do your job, if the motive of those coming to join your organization doesn't align with why you're doing your job, right? You somehow there's a new test of helping them see that while they're doing the other, can you do both? And so with Bob Stoops or others, that's a harder job, right? It's more labor intensive. And so I think there's part of the stress point for many leaders in the environment choosing.
So many players are on their third or fourth school. Last thing before we let you go, I know you're busy, but they're on their third or fourth school. Are these kids graduating? Are they all going to school in summer school to get credits to make up the stuff that they lose? How is that working? Is that working?
So I don't think it's working, but maybe put it this way. Sometimes if you hear a young man on his third or fourth school, it's just like people like, that's so negative. Mm-hmm. I've seen the opposite. Yes, there are downsides. Certainly academic progress is a challenge, but these kids really, they know what they need to do to stay eligible. The schools know how many credits need to transfer. Everyone goes to summer school because they're training all summer, right? They're doing that. I don't know the true effect yet on graduation rate. My guess is that it will take a slight hit, but I can't say now that we have a crisis. I don't have enough data yet to say that. But what I will say, these are smart kids. They're driven. Their ability to adapt to a new place. It's like changing jobs, right? Mm-hmm. And to adapt and become embedded. So they're learning some skills about being able to be accepted and get along and perform and manage in a new environment. It's pretty stressful. And sometimes what I've already experienced, we've been a player's third or fourth school, and we were the one that finally worked. Mm-hmm. The right place with the right people, the right need at the right time, and their production just took off. And so sometimes a young man is just running from a problem, right? They haven't yet become, and they change colors and they're still the same person, same player. I have seen that too. But there are others that it's a success story. Each time they change, they are adapting and improving. And they finally end up at the place that needed them, wanted them, that they could thrive. And I can't give you the percentage again on that yet, but I have seen that work.
I just had someone from another school who you may end up actually knowing, but they said that they've been tracking the transfers and that the people who transfer at the same level, like say from a Power 4 to a Power 4 school, they're not as likely to be successful. The kids who are D2 to FCS to Group of 5 to Power 4, when people are moving up the ladder, they actually have a higher success rate. That doesn't surprise you. You found the same thing?
No, so I would say just the opposite. And our research says this, that each time a player transfers up, and I'll use, let's just say from the FCS level to Group of 6, or let's say Group of 6 to A4, or whatever terms we want to use. What we found in our data is each time a player transfers up, the number of snaps they play goes down. And that number, so for us, a starter that then moves up. And I know by the amount they're going to be paid if they're bringing them to be a starter or a backup.
Right.
So when a player moves up, what our research suggests is up to 85% of those players, their role diminishes and their play count goes down. And so my research has found just the opposite of what.
Okay.
What we found is players moving down, their role increases and their snap count goes up. And there is exceptions to both, but our research has been just the opposite.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask more coaches about that until I get to some kind of consensus. Yeah. All right. Hey, Bronco, we appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us and pulling back the curtain on how all this craziness works in off season and how you manage this. I appreciate it a lot.
Right on. Thanks a lot.
There's Bronco Mendenhall. Reminder, win big this Wednesday on the KSL Sports Zone with Win Tickets Wednesday. This week, win tickets to see Britt Floyd at the Maverick Center Saturday, June 6th. Great seats still available. Ticketmaster.com. Get your tickets today and listen to all the KSL Sports Zone all day Wednesday, the 3rd, for your chance to win right here on the Zone. DJ and PK, when we come back, what is trending? The headlines are next.
It's time to get your morning started with the news you need to know.
News update.
This is what's trending with DJ and PK. Hashtag NBA.
No, because they definitely want to beat me, and I want to kick their ass. So they love them, and you can always love them before and after. I got ties to San Antonio, and you appreciate the people, you appreciate the journey and all that other stuff. But at the end of the day, just like they want to beat you, you definitely want to beat them.
That's Knicks coach Mike Brown telling us the truth right there. You're going to have friends you want to win the championship. Why? Because if you don't, you get fired. That's why. Mike Brown can explain that to you. He's been fired before. I don't know why the Sacramento Kings fired him. It seems kind of like a stupid thing to do, but I don't know why they traded De'Aaron Fox either. But, you know, they had some pieces there. Granted, they still needed a lot more pieces. But they had some pieces, and now Fox is playing for the Spurs, and Brown's coaching the Knicks, and they're both in the finals, and Sacramento's still in the lottery. Some things never change. But nonetheless, if you're Mike Brown and you've been let go in Cleveland, you've been let go in San Antonio, I don't doubt him. He wants to win. Get that on the resume. Nothing as a coach will get you entirely off the hot seat, but there's some things that you can do to get some credibility and lower that temperature, and one of them is win a championship. And Mike Brown and the Knicks are close. They know they're going to play the Spurs now. The Spurs back in the finals after a 111-103 win over Oklahoma City Thunder. We'll get into this later. I think there are a lot of things that happen in that game. There's so many things that happen in the game The things we hate about the NBA, the things people complain about, they all happened in that game. The game itself was great because there's going to be a winner and a loser, as PK always says. The Spurs got up. The Thunder punched back. The Spurs answered. We got to halftime. Thunder made a run and took the lead. Spurs punched back. Spurs, again, had problems with the Thunder. They made another run. The Spurs came. And then the Spurs, I thought, really did a good job in the fourth quarter. And I was really impressed with their young guys. There's no way I could pick them. Well, I could pick them to go to the conference final and play the Thunder. It's the series we all wanted to see since, I don't know, October, November, December. I think we had some unity in the community on that one. But you get into the series and what's going to happen, trusting 20, 21, 22-year-olds. And sure enough, early in the series, you guys like Castle with 20 turnovers in the first two games. Couldn't catch passes, dribbling off his foot, all throwing the ball into the stands, all kinds of terrible things. And there was a lot of defense of, Fox is out and he's got to run the offense. He's not ready for it. But the turnovers were so bad. They were so bad. But, man, you look at him in Game 6 and 7 when they had to win. That's a guy who's playing much better. That's a young guy who made a lot of progress. I thought Harper was really good. Also, obviously, Wembayama was. So if you hate teams tanking going to the lottery, bad news. The guys who were picked 1, 2, and 4 all came up big in Game 6 and 7. They had to be looking in the mirror thinking, yeah, I got this. Let's go. They have a ton of confidence. And other teams are going to keep tanking no matter what the rules are because that's how you get those guys. All right, there were more ugly trends in that game, even though it was a very entertaining game. And now it's Spurs and Knicks starting Wednesday night. Another year, another champion. We're about a quarter of the way through the league now. Mixing and matching. We haven't gotten to a third yet. We're a quarter of the way through the league with different teams winning the title and nobody sustaining anything.
We're going to have 9 champions in 9 years.
I thought it was 8 and 8. It's 9 and 9, huh?
Per law, who I trust on most of this stuff.
I'll go back and count that up then. All right, that gives me something to do during the break. Cool. Thank you, Yak. Sixers hired Mike Gansey away from the Cavaliers to become the new president of basketball operations. He'll team with Bob Myers in directing the Sixers going forward. The Orlando Magic set to hire Spurs assistant coach Sean Sweeney as their new head coach. He beats out Billy Donovan and Jeff Van Gundy for the job as a first-time head coach. Man, it is good to have the Spurs on your resume, isn't it? The Jazz current head coach, Spurs on the resume. The Jazz previous head coach, Spurs on the resume. There's Spurs people all over the league. All right, more on the NBA coming up next with the question of the day. DJ and PK.
#NFL.
What is it about the Achilles tendon? What is going on? Why are people snapping their Achilles all the time? It's got to be something to do with weight training, nutrition. There's got to be something going on. The Giants, wide receiver Gunnar Olszewski, feared to have torn his Achilles in OTAs, the third Giant to tear an Achilles this offseason overall. And it's not just football. We've seen a ton of Achilles in basketball also. What is going on? There's something. There's got to be something. Reports say Juju Smith-Schuster, Braxton Berrios, Odell Beckham Jr. will work out for the Giants today as they look to add depth to the wide receiver position after Olszewski's injury. Yeah. One person's bad news is somebody else's good news. That is the way it works in sports. The window for the Eagles to trade wide receiver A.J. Brown, potentially to the Patriots, probably, is set to open 2 o'clock today Mountain Time. 4:01 Eastern, 2:01 Mountain. They begin the new year. There's a whole thing with a salary cap. You're into the new year, so you can now spread out whatever is owed because you give them some big signing bonus up front and you have a ton of dead money. But now you can put some of the dead money in this year and push the rest out to next year. So teams are waiting for this, and we'll see if it happens really quickly or if the Eagles can find someone other than the Patriots to bid and they can have themselves a little auction and get more when they trade A.J. Brown. But everybody expecting that move to happen here now that we're into the new year. Vikings have hired Nolan Teasley as their new general manager. They'd not had a GM since they fired theirs January 30th. Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah was fired January 30. Teasley rose from intern to assistant GM for Seattle over 13 years. And now he'll run the Vikings. Man, that guy's going from what might be the best division of football to what might be the best division of football. Who's really got it together? AFC West, NFC North? Those are the 3 divisions where you can pretty much count on 3 teams being really good. And maybe all 4. I think the North last year didn't have any teams with losing records. The West is really good, but the Raiders are terrible. and the Cardinals in the NFC West. Sorry about that, guys. A lot of competition in those divisions, though. All right, DJ and PK.
Hashtag college football.
Brendan Sorsby's going to spend a Monday in court seeking an injunction to allow him to play quarterback for Texas Tech this fall. Texas Tech filed an appeal to ask the NCAA to reinstate him after they said he would not be eligible.
His court hearing starts at 8 a.m. our time.
I would bet he's got better odds in a court hearing than he's got in the NCAA, but they're going to try all roads, so we'll see where that goes. I think the deal for Texas Tech is even without him, they can still have a good quarterback in Hammond. What they don't have is a backup if there's an injury. And they got to get Hammond healthy, and that may not be till Game 3 if he's even a little late. Game 3 is Houston, which is a big game in the conference. And you lose a game right out of the gate, you put yourself behind the 8 ball because you don't play all the top competitors. So if you're not playing some of these other schools, they don't play Utah, but you never really know in the Big 12 who the top competitors are. So there may be somebody else I'm leaving out here that they don't play also who turns out to be pretty good. And you have a tiebreaker with them. Hate to lose a tiebreaker at 8-1 because you can't get in. Or that would never happen, that some weird tiebreaker would give you some weird conference championship game. Looking at you, ACC. Big 12 is the first conference to be in full alignment and have all its member schools agree to sign the participation agreements with the College Sports Commission, the agency that was created last year to police name, image, and likeness payments for Power 4 leagues. That suggests that the Big 12 has less money than everyone else because the teams that don't want to sign are the teams that don't want to adhere to the $20 million limit on NIL. They want to go over it. And all the teams that have more money want to go over it.
Well, and in related news, the Big 12 sent a letter to Senator Cruz and Senator Cantwell, who have introduced this new proposed bill in the U.S. Congress saying, yes, please pass this, because to your point, they're trying to level the playing field.
So, not to get too deep into the weeds here, but there's some speculation, and I don't know where it comes from because I didn't get far enough into the weeds, but there's some speculation that they're worried that in the last second in legislation, that would never happen in legislation. There'd never be last second changes. That the language that says you can form the collective for the broadcast agreements will turn into you must form. The Big Ten and SEC are apparently worried about that. So if suddenly senators from, say, Nebraska or Alabama are suddenly, no, that'll scuttle the whole deal. All 68 Power 4 schools must agree to and sign the paperwork for the College Sports Commission's rule to be valid. So we're a long way away from that happening. DJ and PK.
Hashtag Major League Baseball.
Bellinger lines it right center field. How about another run? Base hit Cody Bellinger. Rice is home. And the Yankees with a 13-run third inning. Lucky 13 in Sacramento. And it's a Bellinger RBI single.
Another 3-2. Muncy lifts off to right field. Max Muncy, max power. Halfway up the pavilion. Mark it 8 for the Dodgers.
Swung out, broken bat up the middle. The dive, Perdomo knocks it down. It's going to be a hit. Randy scores. The Mariners have done it again. They've walked off the Diamondbacks for the second time in the series. The Mariners on fire.
Well, it's about time the Mariners got on fire. I thought your Mariners were pretty good, Yak, and then they were losing. And man, best and worst divisions in the sport, the AL West, everybody had a losing record. And the Mariners have finally pulled it together with a 6-game win streak now. That was a good week for them. They're now over 500 at 31-29. 2 games over, 2.5 games in front of Sacramento and Texas. I know Sacramento doesn't want to be called Sacramento, but you're playing in Sacramento, so I'm going to call you Sacramento. The Athletics. The only team who should do that is the Raiders. They've moved it too many times. They don't get to use city names anymore. They're just going to move again. They should just be the Raiders. So the Mariners pulled it together. Speaking of the Athletics, they gave up a 13-run third inning to the Yankees. You heard the highlight there. The Yankees are in town. Now, I flipped over the game. It was on the they were carrying the Yes broadcast on the Major League Baseball Network. And I was channel surfing yesterday. I flipped over and saw the game, so I was watching. 7th inning. And granted, some people probably left. But it's only an 11,000-seat ballpark, and it wasn't full. It looked like it was somewhere between half and 2/3 full. Now, I get it. You have a 13-run third inning. People might leave. But it's the Yankees. You're trying to prove you're a Major League Baseball city? You're acting like Dodger fans? You're gone by the 7th inning? There were so many people spread out, and it's actually the best way to sit in a ballpark. Do you really want to be in a ballpark where it's sold out and you're sharing the armrest with somebody, and you always end up with some big 6'4", 280-pound dude whose shoulders are wider than his chair? You don't really want that. You want your legs up over the seats in front of you because nobody's in the row in front of you and nobody's in the row in front of that. And that's what I was seeing in Sacramento. And they want a Major League Baseball team. Please. Can't sell out the Yankee game and keep it full through the 7th inning. A lot of high-scoring games. Yankees hammer the A's 13-8. Dodgers they didn't really have a big inning, just 13 hits, just kept scoring every inning against the Phillies, beat them 9-1. The Phillies' Bryce Harper said he was not surprised by the league's salary cap pitch, but he expressed concern over what could happen to the sport in 2027 if the season is compromised. He says, we're coming from two different areas, but we both have to understand our game is in a great position right now to succeed, and we can't lose that momentum. We can't lose that momentum as players. We can't lose that momentum as owners. So wherever we're at, whatever they're coming with, whatever we're coming with, you have to come to an agreement before any of that happens because there's other things to do. It's not like 1994 where there's nothing else to do. It's not just, baseball's here. No, there's a lot of other things to do than to just watch baseball. Bryce Harper, the voice of reason. Is that just going to echo off the canyon walls and disappear into nothingness, or are people going to listen to him?
They should be listening to him.
He's right. There's a lot of other stuff to do. There's other places to spend your money. More things than ever.
But this is also Major League Baseball, who scuttled an entire World Series over the last time they tried to implement a salary cap.
It was 32 years ago. They've signed many agreements since then.
With lockouts in at least 2,
but
right?
Hey, if they lose spring training,
okay,
they're fine. Now, if you lose 10 games, probably forgive you. If you lose 80 games, Bryce Harper's got to be up on a table screaming, what are we doing? He's got to go full Taylor Twellman. What are we doing? Bees beat Round Rock 8-6 in the series finale. They split a 6-game series, and they start hosting Albuquerque tomorrow. They'll be back at the ballpark. Bizarre injury of the day. Blue Jays outfielder Jesus Sanchez suffered a bruised wrist on a ball thrown from the stands by a fan who thought he was looking to play catch during a 6th-inning stoppage with the Orioles. Cool tradition, but you can't blindside the players. That's an odd injury. Mostly when I hear weird injuries, I figure guys are just lying, trying to cover up for who knows what stupid behavior.
In this case,
if it happens on the field with everybody there, that's good. Then the player can say, nope, we all saw it.
You gotta give credit to Sanchez. He said, hey, they thought I was looking to the crowd, hey, let's play catch.
Yeah, and he could just be looking up at the crowd just because you gotta look somewhere.
He said, all of a sudden they thought it wasn't meant to be that, but he understood. He wasn't trying to blast.
I'm glad he rolled with that, and I'm glad they play catch with the fans. Just, you're charging the fans so much money. It's so much time and so much money to be invested as a sports fan. Just a little something. Again, an example of somebody who's willing to put the drawbridge down, walk across the moat, and interact with the little people before he retreats back into the multi-million-dollar castle. So, got to applaud the willingness of all the outfielders who will do that. All right, DJ and PK. What is this music, Yak? I never know.
This is I think it's one of the themes from one of the World Cups that I think it might be Fox from the South Africa.
Yeah. Well, we're hitting the World Cup break here. The U.S. men's national team beat Senegal 3-2 in the first World Cup tune-up friendly. These things, it's a borderline inter-squad scrimmage. You see in it what you want to see in it. If you win big, you worry the other guys aren't any good or they weren't trying.
You mean switching out 10 players at halftime is not a big deal?
Well, and I get that. You got to spread the minutes around. You don't want guys to get hurt. Yeah. You don't want guys exhausted. You want to see different players together. And you're going to rotate through, whether it's substitutions or change up the lineup game to game, so multiple guys need to play. I totally get that. But to your point, that's a great example of why it's not real. Now it's 3-2, and you can sit here and go, oh, the goals look so good, But they gave up 2 goals, and how much of that was self-inflicted, and so you can obsess about that.
And it was also Sadio Mane, who's one of the best wingers in the world, still to this day.
Yep. So everyone can obsess about that, but better to win than to lose.
Christian Pulisic's back on the score sheet, so we're good.
So that looked good. Yeah. Goal and an assist, right? Royals push their unbeaten streak to 10 straight matches. They gave up a late penalty and finished 2-2 in Portland. So San Diego, with a win, jumps by him into first place. Utah and Portland tied for second, 1 point back in the National Women's Soccer League, a 16-team league, no divisions, no conferences. So tied for second out of 16. The Royals need to maintain that momentum after the World Cup break because this is clearly, far and away, the best they've ever played, the best results they've ever gotten. Now they've got to keep it going after a long break here for the World Cup. DJ and PK.
#golf.
Russell Henley reeling off 3 straight birdies in the final 3 holes to force a playoff against Eric Cole, and then he won the Charles Schwab Challenge with a birdie on the first playoff hole to collect $1.782 million. How crazy that they can play for 4 days. It just routinely either tied or one-shot wins. It happens so often. Every once in a while you get that blowout, which I guess we had at the PGA Championship, but it's so rare. Patrick Fishburne tied for 54th at even par. Tony Finau and Zach Blair missed the cut at the event. Tony Finau, is it just, has he caught the rabbit?
Well, he had a good week last week. He had his tied for 6th, his best start of the season. And then
I'm
this
thinking,
week,
is he going to build on it?
And the funny thing,
he misses the cut.
Yeah, the funny thing about this is it's a par 70 course. He went 70-70, so he was even par, still missed the cut. So showed you how competitive this field was.
What is trending is brought to you by Shamrock Plumbing. There's no job too big or too small. Get the personal touch with Shamrock Plumbing. Coming up 8 o'clock, Jay Stevens, NHL Insider and host of the Utah Puck Report for KSL Sports, will join us, and we will talk Stanley Cup Final with him. Ben Anderson, Utah Jazz Insider for KSL Sports, and co-host to Jake and Ben, will join us at 9 o'clock to talk about the NBA Finals and the matchup, the Knicks and the Spurs, and what we learned from Game 7. And actually, we'll get to some of what we learned from Game 7 next. That is the question of the day. What are people going to do? Are the Spurs unstoppable? Are any of the recent trends that we don't like going to continue? We'll get to that coming up. And also, I don't know if you're following the college baseball and the college softball World Series. So softball is actually in the World Series now. There were 8 teams and they started, they're down to 4. Originally there were 64, but 8 went to Oklahoma. And then baseball's in the regionals. Some of those regionals have been clinched. Texas knocked out my Gauchos in the final. Thanks for nothing, Texas. And some of them have to be clinched today. But there are a couple trends, and I can tie college baseball and softball directly to football on how you allocate your budgets. We'll get to that coming up as well. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
For Jazz fans, it's been a rough few years. Well, those days are behind us as the Utah Jazz finally struck gold in the NBA Draft Lottery.
Picking second.
As the Jazz prepare to draft a potential superstar with the number 2 overall pick, nobody will bring you better coverage of the NBA Draft than the KSL Sports Zone. For all the breaking news, high-profile interviews, and player analysis leading right up to draft night, keep it locked on your exclusive home of Utah Jazz basketball. 97.5. The KSL Sports Zone.
Join Scotty G and the coach Tim Lacombe Wednesday from 10 to 2 at Mountain Supply's grand opening in Eagle Mountain at 766 East Split Rock Drive. Time for the question of the day. Are the Spurs unstoppable now? I gotta go no. No, they are not unstoppable. Many of you disagree with me. Zachary, I think so. Wemby will probably be the greatest basketball player we ever see, and unfortunately, he has a great support system. Spurs will be the team for my future and futures to come. Zachary. James, though, is funny. Nobody beats them between now and Saturday, guaranteed. They're going to win the first couple, huh? Got a game Wednesday. Scott, yes, but it won't be a sweep. Yeah, I don't think after the first round I would pick a sweep. I mean, sweeps can happen, but it takes the first round or it takes massive injuries. In a normal series, it's just not the way. You get 1 versus 8, sure, there's enough discrepancy, why not? Got a really good team and a super mediocre to possibly bad team. But to win 4 in a row, it takes it takes something major. Now, having said that, the Knicks have won 11 in a row. It can happen later. I just wouldn't pick it. I certainly didn't pick the Knicks to sweep the Cavaliers or the Sixers. Didn't even occur to me that they would do that. After watching the Sixers beat the Celtics, I thought it'd be a good series. And it was not. Scott, if you want to crown him, then crown him. And then he's got a Denny Green gift. Nice. That's one of the great rants right there. Classic Denny Green. I love that. I liked Denny Green before that. He'd been at Stanford. I'd followed him a little bit in the Pac-10. And he moved back and forth between college and the NFL, Minnesota, Arizona, and the NFL. But that rant sealed it. Loved it. See, Scott's a little more with me. They may do it. They may win 2-3 in a row. But 4 in a row? When's the last time we saw anybody win 4 in a row in anything? Anything. Nick Saban won a lot. Did he win 4 in a row? He did not. The Yankees won a lot. Did they win 4 in a row? They did not. They won 3. They won 4 out of 5, 3 in a row.
If you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
Thank you, Yak. The Giants, they had a really good run. They won 3 out of 5, never went back-to-back. Like the Spurs and Tim Duncan, who won 5 times and never went back-to-back. Saw the Lakers win 3 in a row, but not 4. Patrick, I think the Jazz could beat them in 5 this year if they really tried. Patrick? Easy does it there, Patrick. In 5. Got to slow down on that. Here's the problem with saying anybody's unstoppable. I just got told the Oklahoma City Thunder were unstoppable. And I thought, I get it. They're young. They got that core together. They got a lot of draft picks. They could keep it rolling. But they did need 2 7-game series last year. And to their credit, they won both the 7-game series. But, Yak, what was they saying earlier in the series when we had Barry Trammell on? The Thunder like to play with their food. They don't put teams away, and you can't win all the Game 7s. Sometimes guys come up big, and I thought the Spurs had multiple guys come up big. I mean, Victor Wembanyama, I thought he came up big. Had some big hoops. I mean, the 22 points isn't a massive number, but they had 7 guys in double figures. The ball was moving. And so Big Vic is getting a lot of attention, sometimes even before he catches the ball. Other guys have to score, and other guys did. But he was 7 of 15. He was 3 of 5 from the three-point line. He had his 7 boards. That whole team boarded. They had 5 guys with 6 or 7 boards. Everyone scored. Everyone boarded. And Vassell, Castle, rock solid. And off the bench, Dylan Harper with a big roll off the bench. Castle got loose with the ball at the end of the game. I thought he had a good game. The fourth quarter, it did get a little dicey at times. But I still like the game those young guys played. And we got to say to the Thunder, I mean, Holmgren, that was terrible. 4 points on 1 of 2 shooting. You got to take more than 2 shots. You got to be more involved than that. You only had 4 rebounds in 33 minutes. You got out-rebounded by 5 players on the other team. You got out-rebounded by 4 players on your team. You're Chet Holmgren, man. You're 7 feet tall. You can't be the 10th best rebounder in the game. And yet, and it wasn't just Holmgren, Hartenstein. Holmgren and Hartenstein, when they won Game 5 and went up 3-2, both had really good games. They both scored. They both shot it efficiently when they got their shots. They both scored. They both rebounded. Really strong game from those guys in Game 5. But they couldn't replicate it, so they helped them get that 3rd win in Game 5, and they couldn't find the 4th win in Game 6 or 7. Caruso, 3 for 14. Yikes. When he was good, they were good. Now, there were some other guys who could have helped the Thunder, but they couldn't play. I mean, Jalen Williams is the second leading scorer, so obviously him, and A.J. Mitchell was coming on in the playoffs somewhat unexpectedly. His role kept getting bigger, and he kept coming through, and people were amazed. And they were both out with injuries. So this leads to, is anybody really unstoppable in this era? the injuries are piling up big time, and both these teams were vulnerable to them. And I think the lesson that people are going to take out of this Game 7, aside from why didn't the Thunder win, did the Spurs win, are the Spurs going to keep winning? I think the lessons people are going to take away are going to frustrate all of us. There are a lot of you listening who don't like the number of three-pointers taken in the current NBA game. We'll get to that. There are a lot of you listening who don't like the fact that stars don't play in a lot of games, and they sit, and that whole Stockton and Malone 82-game vibe, or that Thurl Bailey, was it 83 or 84 he played the year he got traded to Minnesota? It was more than 82.
It was 84.
It was 84.
Because he got traded and then played the 2 extra. Yeah.
Right. Because of the way their schedules, yeah. He missed some days off and got some bonus games. And that's all gone. I think the average Locke told us used to be 74 games a season, and now it's dropped down into the 60s, and they've had to put in this 65-game rule so you can got to play 65 games if you're going to be all-NBA first or second team or be the MVP and hit the bonuses and be eligible for bigger salaries later in your career. That's not changing. Early in the series, the Spurs got in the hole. They were down 2-1. And De'Aaron Fox wasn't playing early in the series and then a little rusty when he came back. Then he plays late in the series, and they win 3 of the last 4. Meanwhile, early in the series, Jalen Williams is still playing. But he and Mitchell out at the end of the series, and once they're gone, the Thunder kind of figure out the other guys and win. The Spurs figure out the other guys and beat the Thunder in 3 of the last 4 games. No matter who won Game 7, I was texting with a friend at halftime. I said, no matter who wins this game, the loser is going to say, we could have won this series if we were healthy. And they'll have a point. And you know what that's going to lead to? Everybody studies this stuff. Everybody's going to sit their guys next year trying to be healthy for the playoffs. That's the lesson of watching this playoff series. If the Thunder had won, the Spurs would say, we dug an early hole when we didn't have our guy. And now that the Thunder lost, like, hey, we made a lot of mistakes, and Holmgren's got to come up bigger, and Alex Caruso's got to shoot the ball better, and blah, 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 blah. And also, if we'd have had Jalen Williams, we would have won. Maybe they would have, maybe they wouldn't, but they can tell themselves that. There's no alternative history, but they can tell themselves that. They had the lead in the second half on a couple occasions, and they could have won it if they'd had Jalen Williams. And maybe they'd won an earlier game, and they wouldn't have needed a Game 7. So bad news if you want to see the end of players resting and load management. Nope, that's all with us. That was just reinforced in Game 7. And as far as the threes, and I know it's frustrating, I get a little frustrated. PK gets a lot frustrated watching teams take threes and miss threes and take more threes and miss more threes and continue to take threes. I think within a game, if you miss a bunch of threes, go get yourself another kind of shot and then come back to the three. But you can't stop shooting it. But if you've missed 4 in a row, you don't have to take a 3 on the 5th possession. You could go attack the rim, get a little something, couple trips down, and then go back to the 3. But the Spurs won Game 7 on the 3-pointers. Oklahoma City made more 2-pointers and made more 1-pointers. The Thunder went to the hoop. They shot more free throws. They made more free throws. Predictably, the free throws were really close. The Thunder outshot the Spurs 22-19 and outscored them 17-14 at the free throw line. But the fact that the Thunder had more free throws and had more 2-pointers, the Spurs trumped that. They shot more threes and they made more threes. They were 17 of 40. The Thunder were 12 of 35. They took 5 more 3-pointers. They made 5 more 3-pointers. And that 15 points was the difference in an 8-point win. So if you think anybody's going to slow down taking the threes, I think there are isolated teams. I've just seen a little glimmer of hope. I've seen isolated teams with players with special skill sets, ability to make mid-range twos. I think they lean into that a little bit at times in games. And whereas in the past, teams have been unwilling to do it. But as a trend on the whole, this is just going to reinforce that you got to make threes. You may miss them, but if you don't take them, you can't make them. And if you don't make them, you can't win. That's going to be the lesson coming out of this. And another lesson, nobody really likes the tanking. They've changed the tanking rules. But the Spurs just won. And the Spurs won with Harper scoring 12 points and grabbing 7 boards, and Castle 16 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. He did have the 6 turnovers. And with Wembanyama going 22 and 7, and those are picks 1, 2, and 4. And if even one of those guys has a Chet Holmgren, Alex Caruso stat line, that game in that series could have been really different. So if you think teams are going to stop trying to tank, forget about it. Now, the NBA's moved the bag back at first base, and they've changed the rules. But now there's a chance you could be in the playoffs and still catch a break in the lottery. So if you think teams aren't going to aim for that sweet spot, you're wrong. They are going to try to aim for that sweet spot. There is a chance that the NBA has picked its spot here and this 27 draft isn't very good, and that we'll have less of it for a year. But the next time the draft is loaded, as the 26 draft, the 25 draft, the 23 draft, 3 of the last 4 drafts have been viewed as very good drafts.
Unlike the 27 and 28,
which they're not looked at as good. As the 24 wasn't looked at as being very deep.
So here's, to your point, make a 2-year lull where these tanking rules,
they may
unquote,
look like they're working, but let's wait till we get to a draft that's got some real talent at the top. Did I get that right? Was it the 24 draft? Yeah. Yes, it was. Risa Shea, Sar, Shepard, Edie. Yeah. The Bronny James draft, the 24 draft. Said no one ever. So there you go. There's 3 trends. Don't like them? They're not changing. They all got reinforced in Game 7. Now we'll see what gets reinforced here. You know, the cool thing about the Knicks winning, I don't really want to see a New York team win because I never want to see a New York team win. I grew up in San Diego. I root for the underdog. I don't like rooting for LA and New York teams. Sorry, they win enough as it is. Well, some of them do. The Angels and the Jets haven't been pestering us with all that winning. But if the Knicks win, did they tank? I mean, they had a free agent signing there. They had a trade there. They were built in an interesting fashion. Who's got the best player? Well, it looks like the Spurs do, right? Big Vic's supposed to dominate the game. The team that wins the series is usually the team with the best player. And, man, I thought SGA came through. His team lost, but my gosh, that was a show. He hit so many shots. He finished with 35 points. I'm not sure what more he was supposed to do. 35 points, 4 rebounds, 9 assists, only 3 turnovers. Bravo. And that 3 he hit from the left side, contested, that's the definition of a make-or-miss league. He had a guy close to him jump at him. He just stepped to the left, created the space, and hit the shot. That was a difficult shot. Very impressed, even though he got beat. Could have used a little help from his teammates. They didn't want to put Lou Dort back out on the court. He started 1 for 4, 16 minutes. That's enough of you. All right, DJ PK, when we come back, there's a trend in college football, and I think a lot of us are enjoying it. Sorry, SEC, we just don't want to see you win anymore. But I think their next pivot is clear. To me, it's obvious, and I noticed it watching the college baseball and softball over the weekend. Yeah, maybe. What's it to you? Did I watch more baseball and softball than you? Is that a problem? I like to think of it as my job. Anyway, so I was watching that, and I got out the computer and started looking as I noticed the results. Man, I think there's a clear strategy for the SEC in football. We'll get to that next. Stay with us.
They've been doing it for a while.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
Man, the myth, the legend, Thurl Big T. Bailey. I'm not sure how much you've had a chance to watch A.J. DeBonsa, but you have any thoughts if you have been able to see him a little bit?
Personally, I think he's the best player right now in that group. I did get a chance to watch all these guys play, maybe A.J. a little bit more, but he's been groomed for the next level. You look at what BYU was running. The offenses look like NBA offenses. The ISOs look like ISOs. He's becoming a really good playmaker as well. Just a great season. Far and above Player of the Year in college. I would be surprised if Washington didn't take him. He's going to be nice. It's not going to be perfect for him coming in at this level. He's going to have to learn some things, the physicality, the speed of the game, the number of games, potential rookie wall, but everybody goes through those things. He's going to be a great player in this league.
Catch Jake and Ben afternoons from 2 to 6 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The KSL Sports Zone and Beehive Meals are honoring people that impact youth sports in our communities. Nominate the youth sports volunteer you know for the Beehive Meals Hero of the Week at KSLSports.com/contest and listen every Thursday afternoon to Jake and Ben for the winner. It's the Beehive Meals Hero of the Week. So for a long time, the SEC was really good at football, and they beat their chest about it endlessly. Which, you know, if you're winning those BCS championships for the better part of 20 years, of course you do. Now, I think we all realize, follow the money. They had more people willing to pay more money under the table, and so they won. And then NIL came along. And guess what? Vanderbilt suddenly got good in football at the SEC. Not great, but good. Apparently they weren't willing to cheat, but now that it was legal, they were willing to pony up and win some football games. And obviously some Big Ten schools ponied up, and now they won the last 3 national titles. And the SEC still beats their chest, and we all giggle because they are 2-8. 2-8 in the playoffs against the other Power 4 leagues in the last 3 years. They're 5-10 overall, but twice we had SEC versus SEC games, so that changes 2-8 into 4-10. And once they beat a G5 school, so that makes them 5-10. But they're 2-8 against the other 3 Power 4 leagues. Not good. Not great, Bob. Not great. Give me that meme from the elevator. So how's the SEC going to fix it? Well, I would suggest more money. Some people say they don't have it. They may not have as much as some other schools, but they've got some money. And I think this comes down to that age-old question, how much do you want the other teams in your athletic department to win? The SEC's theory, and Chris Hill told me this at least 20 years ago, the SEC doesn't play as many sports as other people, but the ones they play at a very high level. So you're not going to see SEC teams wrestling, for instance. They don't do it. They got the money. They're not interested. But they play baseball at a high level. They play softball at a high level. They play women's gymnastics at a high level. They've been trying to get men's basketball to a high level. They've had some very good women's basketball teams. You go on down the line. So I'm watching this weekend. And at one point, I was flicking around channel surfing before I landed on the Yankees and the A's with the A's fans. Half of them gone and people sprawled across the seats. You don't get a major league team if you can't fill your stadium and keep them there for the 7th inning of a Yankee game. Stop talking about expansion. We're getting the team in Utah, not in Sacramento. People don't appreciate what you've got there. So I'm flipping around, and ESPN's getting ready for Women's College World Series stuff from Oklahoma on ESPN. They had a pregame show, and there were regionals going on ESPN2 and ESPNU and the SEC and ACC networks. And I was looking everywhere trying to see if I could find my Gauchos playing Texas. About the time I realized I was going to have to stream that, I saw Texas take the lead, and my interest went way down. But what I did notice was that the SEC had a lot of teams playing. In softball, they had, in both baseball and softball, they got 12 of their 16 teams invited to the NCAA tournament. Why do they do that? I think they spend a lot of money on those sports. In softball, they had 9 advanced to the Super Regionals. They had 9 of the 16 teams left in the Super Regional. They had 5 of the 8 that went to Oklahoma City for the Women's College World Series, and they're down to 4 teams in that tournament now, and it's 3 SEC teams and Texas Tech. The 2 Big Ten teams basically finished 5th and 6th. They got bounced. The two SEC teams got bounced right away, so I guess they would have finished 7th and 8th. And then I'm looking at baseball. Again, they got 12 teams in. They've already had 5 teams win, and we'll have more. We'll see how many more teams today. There'll be some games that decide who goes to the Super Regionals. So by tomorrow, we'll know. But the point is it's going to be a lot. The SEC's won 7 of the last 8 NCAA baseball championships, 7 of the last 8 College World Series in Omaha, Nebraska. So the SEC's clearly pumping money into softball and baseball, which Chris Hill told me 20 years ago, that's just their philosophy. That's how they do it. That you'll see the Big Ten schools will have like 20, 25 sports, but the SEC schools will have 16, 18 sports, and they'll spend more money and they'll win more. So if you want to win, do you take some of that money out of baseball and softball where you are cleaning up and push it over into football? And this, to bring it home to our local schools, this is a question they all face. And I see it on Twitter all the time. The Utes lose at anything, and the Cougar fans will say they're poor, and the Ute fans will blame Mark Harlan. Like clockwork. I can set by watch by it. But look what's happening in the SEC. Do you have money for everything? We just got a pretty good look at the Utes budget. Maybe 20,000 feet. I mean, you can dive into it, and there's more details to know, to be sure. But they're burning through their reserves. Now, we could have a separate conversation about, are they burning through their reserves faster than they need to? Should they tighten up the money on some of these programs? But for Ute fans who are frustrated because baseball or softball or volleyball or women's basketball, whoever, are, more in the middle of the league than they are near the top of the league, well, part of that is you're in the Big 12, and other teams are pretty good at stuff. Kansas is good at baseball. Kansas just won and is in a super regional now. I don't think they know who they play yet. I think they're waiting to find out who their opponent is. And there's a second team, and I'm forgetting who it is. It might be Oklahoma State. But anyway, there's a second team playing for a regional today. And they got like 6 teams in, and 4 have been eliminated. So partly you're dealing with that, and partly you're dealing with, well, how much money do you want to put into football? I mean, they just put more money into the football budget because they paid $13 million for Kyle Whittingham to go away. You don't have money for everything. Where are they going to get the money to keep up? The Big Ten's not slowing down. So the SEC may have to give up some of the money, and each school will make their own decision. But if you want to see BYU good in every sport, women's soccer, not as dominant as they used to be. They've taken a hit. You know what'll fix it? Money. We can blame coaches all we want. And we will. Don't ever forget the American public will absolutely blame the coach. But the coaches who don't have the money, what do you expect? How do you think the SEC won all those football games in the BCS era? Money. Why are they 2-8 against the other Power 4 leagues now? Because the other Power 4 leagues are spending money. They don't want to cheat. Maybe they cheated a little, but they didn't want to cheat a lot. And the SEC would cheat a lot. And not the whole SEC. Vanderbilt was a punching bag, a laughingstock, a joke. Now Vanderbilt's running out. Hey, Vanderbilt just got win 7. Hey, Vanderbilt just got win 8. In rare occasions, Vanderbilt just got win 9. Why is Vanderbilt better all of a sudden? Money. They weren't willing to cheat. Now in the NIL area, they're paying it. Follow the money. The school's got to raise more, and then how do they allocate it inside their athletic department? It'll be real interesting because the SEC cannot stomach what's happening in football. And some school is going to decide to take money away from baseball and softball and women's basketball and men's basketball and women's volleyball and whoever else, women's gymnastics, and they're going to push more money into football, and they're going to do better in the SEC. It's going to happen, and they'll be screaming and hollering about it. There are a lot of people who are attached to the Olympic programs, are emotionally attached. The reason Texas Tech is the only non-SEC team left now that the Women's College World Series in Oklahoma City is down to 4 teams is because Cody Campbell's wife played softball.
Not his wife.
No.
Partner's wife.
Partner's wife.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry. Not his wife.
Oil and
but
gas
his
partner.
when the business that made the gazillions. Yes.
The multiple businesses.
Right. So again, follow the money. There's emotional attachment. Does Texas Tech win like that in every sport? No, they do not.
Just ask Texas Tech baseball.
But is Texas Tech softball one of the last 4 teams standing? Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Follow the money. All right, DJ and PK coming up next. The NHL down to 2. Carolina and Vegas. Jay Stevens, NHL insider and host of the Utah Puck Report for KSL Sports, joins us next. How did Vegas do it? Are they going to do it and win it all? That's next. Ben Anderson at 9 o'clock on the NBA Finals, but the Stanley Cup Final next. Stay with us. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's time to talk Stanley Cup Final with Jay Stevens, NHL insider, host of the Utah Puck Report for KSL Sports. Jay, good morning.
Good morning.
Jay, I have to imagine you're about 0% surprised that Carolina is in the final. They have the best regular season record. And what percent surprised are you Vegas is there to play them, given the fact that, with 10 or 15 games to go, you weren't 100% sure Vegas was going to qualify for the postseason?
Yeah, I'm 100% surprised that it's Vegas and not Colorado. And it's just a surprising thing. And I guess I shouldn't be, because the President's Trophy winner hardly ever wins the Stanley Cup.
Right.
And I need to see how many times they actually make it to the final, but there's just something about that curse, and it turned out to be true. Colorado had a ton of injuries, and Vegas just seemed to be clicking, and everybody's giving Tortorella all the credit for balancing the lines and doing all that stuff. And it's true. For sure, it's true. But the real truth, and I've told you before, we were talking about it the other day in the office, the day they hired him is also the day they got Carter Hart back from injury. And he came in and he stole the show. He was good.
Of all the things you could have, a hot goaltender.
Goaltending is, that it is the playoffs. There's the saying that goaltending 75% of the game, unless you don't have it, then it's 100%. But in the playoffs, and especially in the final, it's always a hot goalie. If you think back over the years with Cheevers and even back to Jaguar with the Ducks, it was Jaguar carrying that Ducks team that shouldn't have even been in the playoffs and winning Stanley Cups. And then Brodeur, maybe that team was pretty stacked and pretty defensive, but it's always been a hot goaltender. And that's the big X factor coming into this. Carter Hart's been tested. He's really good. He's proven that he's good. He's got a lot to prove. And Frederik Andersen has really not had the workload because Carolina's just so well balanced. He's getting 13 to 15 shots a game instead of the standard 25.
I am, as I learn later in life, as I learn more about multiple sports, I am stunned by the crossover in multiple sports. And watching and listening, I would flick on Stanley Cup playoff games because I'm a guy and I got a remote control and there's a game on and I'm bam, 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 right? But I'm not listening to post-game press conferences. I wasn't that into it. And now I'm trying to, and I hear these guys talking and it's like I'm listening to Pablo Mastroeni on skates. Right? The RSL's head coach, Pablo Mastroeni, is like, they always talk about low block defending. He said, why would you drop back and defend 20 yards in front of your goal where there could be a deflection, something bad could happen? Why wouldn't you defend 80 yards from your goal, 90 yards, win the ball, and go score right there? Just win it and be right there ready to attack. And then I watch, and it's like, I was actually listening. I was in my car, and they were talking, I think it was game 4, and I was listening to the game, and there's another thing I wouldn't have done until we had an NHL team. I would not have listened to the radio, but I was just flicking around, button punching. Everybody's in a commercial break, and boom, there was the game. So I started listening, and they're basically, I don't even know who it was on the radio broadcast. They're like, Carolina is squeezing life out of Montreal. Montreal has only got like one of the last 15 shots. And then there was another shot. Now they got one of the last 16 shots. They're counting down. It's like Montreal is struggling. They're getting trapped in the middle of the ice. They can't even get into the attacking zone. So as much as we talk about hot goaltending and you talk about the way Vegas defends, and we saw some of that, how much can these two teams stop each other at the red line or blue line before you even get anywhere where it's dangerous?
Yeah, well, that's the thing about both these teams are really good at matching the other team. I just listened to an interview with Carcone from the Mammoth, and he said, playing Carolina, you can't even breathe. There's no room, and it's 10 times worse during the playoffs. The way they match up, I think you would compare it to a man-on-man, but it's in the neutral zone, which is kind of unheard of. The New Jersey Devils used to run a neutral zone trap that was similar. But, yeah, they're all in, and Rod Brindamore has those guys just fired up about nobody comes into our zone. It used to be like protect the house, just like football, right? Protect the house, which is in the hash marks. But he's like, don't let them in our zone. Don't let any shots. And they did it. Montreal just set the record for the least amount of shots in a I think a conference final. And it's just that they're very well coached. They're so deep. There is not a slow player on that team. And then you flip the script and look at the other side, and lines 3 and 4 for Vegas are slow. I mean, it's Stone and Hurdle. They're amazingly talented people, but they're slow. So I just think you're going to hear a lot of the same stuff. You're going to see the shot count not be high on one side. I think it's basically it comes out to it's Carolina's series to lose. And it's just if Carter Hart steals all the saves, if he makes all the saves, then Carolina is going to smother Vegas. But I said a lot of the same things about Colorado and Vegas. So, it just kind of, but everything I've watched and everything I know about hockey, and it just seems like Carolina is one of the most well-balanced teams I've ever seen in the NHL.
But Colorado was not healthy and Carolina is, right?
Correct. Yeah. And Carolina has barely been tested. They lost one game in the playoffs. The rest of the time they've they play 4 games, they get out, they don't get banged up really. And yeah, Colorado was decimated. Their top 4 guys were going down. And when you lose McKinnon to a bad shot off the ankle, I'm sure we're going to find out later that ankle was broken. And McCarr was already injured. And those are the 2 of the best players in the whole league, not just on the Colorado Avalanche, but in the entire league. So yeah, it does kind of show that Colorado is more vulnerable than Carolina is. But man, Vegas has pulled some magic during these playoffs. And you just think back, 2 overtime goals, and it could have been the Mammoth advancing. And it just seemed like Vegas got better and better.
Yeah. I guess that's where, as much as sports overlap, they don't. Because I think one of the big lessons watching the Spurs win Game 7 in Oklahoma City was that Oklahoma City at the end of the series had a couple of big injuries. Guys who might have been able to come in and give them just a little bit of boost when they had the lead in the second half, and they weren't that far away from winning, but they didn't have their second leading scorer in Jalen Williams, and they didn't have A.J. Mitchell off the bench. But early in the series, when the Spurs fell behind 2-1, they didn't have Fox. And so they're playing young guys big minutes, and just a veteran to rotate through there might have helped. And they lost 2 of the first 3. So the lesson the rest of the league is make sure you're healthy. And I think there's going to be more load management in the NBA next year because nobody's going to miss that lesson. But in hockey, that's not the way they think, and that's not the way they handle it. And Colorado will be going, to the wall next season. And if guys get injured, so be it, right?
Well, yeah, and we talked about this a little bit 2 years ago when hockey first came in, and you and I were talking. I said the thing about the Florida Panthers is they play all year like it's the playoffs, and you think that it hurt them in the long run and it give them more injuries, and because they weren't doing load management and they were hitting everything that moved. It was incredible to watch them for those years, but then you saw how much that made them fall apart. But one of the coolest things about the NHL playoffs is typically you're going to get good play out of your big stars. They're going to make good plays, but it's guys you've never heard of or guys that your 3rd and 4th line guys that are just built for playoffs. There was a guy named Dustin Penner who won a cup with the Ducks and he won a cup with the Kings. And I think he just gets picked up for 1 year and he's just that guy. He scores like 2 points all season and then he'll have like 6 in the playoffs. And Utah's Trevor Lewis was kind of the same way. He'd have 10 points in the season and 5 or 6 in just the playoffs. So yeah, there's tons of injuries, and even when there's not, you're going to see guys find a way to break through, and you're going to hear about players that you haven't heard about before.
It's funny you mentioned that. Back to the comparative sports, when Dave Checketts held a media availability after he'd been awarded RSL, but before they'd ever played a game, he said, when I was in Utah, I knew how the NBA worked because he was running the Jazz. And when he went to New York to run Madison Square Garden, the Knicks and Rangers, he says the first thing I learned about hockey, totally different vibe. In basketball, you have to have the best player because he can be on the court for 40 of the 48 minutes and he can take all the big shots. You better have Michael Jordan. He said, but in hockey, you got to rotate through the lines. He says there isn't a human alive who can stay out on that ice for 3 minutes. Guys are going to be gassed. He says you need 4 lines. You need 3 pairs of defensemen. You need a hot goaltender. He says it's about the room. It's about the group. And he says you never know who the hero is going to be. And there it is right there. That never changes.
And that's where a GM, these GMs that are making these moves, and then you watch what Bill Armstrong's doing and how he's doing stuff. And then you look back to some of the moves he's pulled and, to make an offer sheet on a free agent is almost unheard of in the NHL. And Bill Armstrong did that in St. Louis. And that's what helped them. He was part of it. And they did it. Nobody had done it in years. And it was kind of almost an insult. But they're like, hey, this is part of the rules. We're going to do it. They picked up 2 players that people thought, well, yeah, those are $2 million players, whatever. And those were some of the guys scoring the biggest goals when they win their Stanley Cup. So it comes down to guys just knowing that balance and trusting people to come through at the right time and knowing every piece. And that was one of the questions I asked both Torini and Armstrong in the last interview on the exit interviews. I said, what style of player was the Mammoth missing? Because they know. And they know there's something that they didn't have this year that they're going to want next year. And Brendan Moore and his team in Carolina, they've been figuring that out forever. And I don't know if you saw the handshake line, and Brendan Moore and Martin St. Louis from Montreal, they complimented each other, and Brendan Moore said, I see it. You guys are just getting started, and you'll be here again for the next several years. There's just that balance, and you just got to know what it takes to get through the playoffs. And then there's always a surprise too.
So do the Mammoth need more guys who can grind? More guys who can say nobody gets in our zone? More guys who in 100%. The middle of the ice are just beasts?
We need 3 more Jack McBains, honestly. We need guys like that are just – and Lawson Krause was really good at it too. And I've talked about it before. There's a guy coming out of juniors. He's playing with Denoye right now, Gabe Smith. He's a beast. He's a bull. And Cole Baudouin is also going to be a bull. I mean, they're 20 years old now, 6'4", 225. Yeah. They're gonna be that guy. They're gonna be that grit sandpaper that you want in your lineup.
To get back to that about the final and something you said about Carolina, as good as they are in the way they've dominated, only losing once, in most sports, and I don't know why, but in a lot of sports, the West is better than the East. But in hockey, the East is better than the West. Even if Colorado had been healthy and had won and had the better record, wouldn't you have picked Carolina given the number of 100-point teams on the East side and what they had to get through in the Eastern Conference playoffs?
That's a really good question. I don't think so. When I went through and I did my bracket, I had this is what blew me away even. I had everything right until this part. This is where my bracket fell apart, was Colorado losing. I had Colorado winning just because I thought they had the depth, and they have way better goaltending. I know a lot of people were blaming Colorado's goaltending, but the two Woods, the lumber yard, they call their crease with Blackwood and Wedgwood, they had everything they needed to get through, and I think they would have matched up. It's another team that's been there. I think they're a lot like Carolina, but they had more speed, and their guys are usually able to find more open space, even with a team like Carolina playing against them. But I think that would have been one of the best series to watch if Colorado was healthy, to see them go all the way. I don't know. That would have been it would have been a 7-game series, and I would have picked Colorado to win, but it could have easily been Carolina.
Yeah. While you were talking, I did a quick search. Here's your answer on the President's Cup. 40 President Cup winners, 12 have made it to the Stanley Cup final. So if they can make it to the final, their odds of winning are pretty good. But that's 28 teams getting knocked out before the final by a conference opponent.
Yeah, and it's the curse, right? And hockey players are superstitious. They're very superstitious. And you see them, they're not touching any trophies anymore. And I'm starting to wonder, are there going to be teams, not to get into the whole Jazz, tanking thing, but are there going to be teams that maybe take the foot off the gas a little bit and not win it just because they don't want that curse? It sounds dumb, but I could see it happening just because of all the superstitions.
The combination of get your team healthy and then the superstition of the President's Cup, those two things. Except you got to get your goaltender dialed in and feeling confident. And he can't feel confident if you take your foot off the gas and you're giving up, 35, 40 shots in a game. No goalie wants to face that.
Yeah, so some goaltenders really thrive on that.
Really?
Veggie's one of them. Mike Richter from back in the day, even Henrik Lundqvist. I know you probably don't know a lot of these names, but these are guys that...
Actually, I do, because goalies are stars, and they're the celebs. Nice. They're the ones I can... Richter, that's a pretty big name.
Yeah, okay, perfect. I like this.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was one of my favorite all-time goaltenders, and he was famous of saying, like, hey, I don't want to be in a game where I'm seeing 15, 20 shots. I want 10 shots a period because I'm in it. So, like, if it's unheard of, but if the NHL, if some NHL teams did start saying, hey, we're going to rest our players a little bit and do some load management going down the stretch and let our starting goaltender just get out there and get a real feel for, a lot of pucks. I could see that working. I would, as a goaltender, I would have liked that going into a playoff series because that would make me feel better about my game, especially if I'm on a team that's a President's Trophy caliber team. You're not seeing that many shots. So I'd really like to get a chance to get out there and prove myself to not only to the fan base, but to myself, be like, okay, this is how it is when I'm under siege and I'm getting shell shocked. And, and then you go into playoffs with that little bit more experience.
There are nights in the winter where there are so many games, and I'm trying to attack BYU, Utah, and Utah State. I'm trying to follow the Jazz and the Mammoth, plus whatever else is going on in the conference or the league, right? And you can't see every minute, every game. So I always try to make sure I check box scores and see if there's anything that's really unusual. And I thought, and obviously I know less about goaltending than a lot of people, but every time I see the Mammoth, when I start to see 30 shots plus, bad things happen. And I haven't and I should go back and add this up, right, and see if the analytics match the eye test or the totals. But I always think if you see mid-20s or something in shots, it's really hard to limit to a team to less than 20 shots. It just doesn't seem to happen very often. It does occasionally, but not very often. But like mid to high 20s, and then Veggie's only given up 1 or 2 goals, and his save percentage is over 90%, and it just looks great. But, man, you start seeing 33 shots, 35 shots, 30, like, uh-oh, bad things happening.
Yeah.
I mean, it's brave for the goaltender
too.
to say that, and I get why they say it, show no weakness, but really, I don't think you want that.
Well, you don't want a lot of high quality inside backdoor, wide open backdoor shots.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want guys standing right in front of you, tipping them. Ones that you really don't have a chance at.
Yeah.
But if it's 30 shots,
quality
I'm not saying they're easy shots from the outside or anything. I'm just saying realistically that you could save them, that you had a chance at. A lot of goalies are going to save that. Veggie's one of them. I think Veggie just gets overworked in general anyway. We need somebody else. He can't play 65 games. It's unfair to him. I think it's unfair to the fan base to, and he wants to. And I asked that question too at the exit interview, and he said, no, I'll play every game. And every goalie's going to say that because you don't want to give up the net.
Right.
But typically if you're seeing 35 shots, that means your team's not playing that well either, and you're giving up those high scoring opportunities.
Yeah.
So you're dead right. And the other crazy thing about the NHL this year, this is one of the first years that the average, like typically your best goaltenders on your best teams are 93, 94% save average. And this year across the board, it was 90, 91, 89. It's something was going on. Like shooters have figured it out. I'm in a bunch of goalie groups on Facebook and stuff, and they're tearing down every part of goaltending again since Jonathan Quick kind of revitalized it, after Jaguar revitalized it, after Belfour revitalized it. So I think you're going to see a new style of goaltending coming in starting next year.
Well, be like the NHL needs to be like the NFL. Scoring sells. So change the rules, and let's face it, pads are a science, right? How much of the goal can you block without even moving? All they got to do is change the rules and change the clothing, change the pads.
7 years ago, they made the pads smaller. They changed what we could wear on our chests. They changed what we could wear on our legs. They took 1.5 inches off the width of the leg pads, and then they capped them. Even a guy like you've got one of the goaltenders coming up right now, Michael Robel for the Mammoth. He's 6'7", and he has to wear the same size pads as somebody that's 6'3", 6'4". So they capped the height. That used to be like, oh, if you're 6'4", you can have bigger pads or whatever. Or if Jaguar wore pads that went up to his belly button. Yeah, you're right. So they keep changing it, and they did start threatening to make the net wider, which would blow everybody. Like that would just
blow everybody's minds, right? Yeah. But people want to see 4-3, not 2-1. I mean, we've all been in the arena. It erupts, right? That's what people want to see. It erupts.
Yeah, 100%. They should be erupting for those big, not the big glove saves, but the big leg pad saves that nobody realizes how important those were.
So you've got Carolina. It's Carolina's to win then, right?
Yeah, I got Carolina in 6 just because I think Carter Hart's going to steal a couple.
Okay. All right, there it is. Hey, Jay, thank you very much. And people can follow you on YouTube, KSLSports.com, the KSL Sports app. You're everywhere, right?
I'm everywhere. Everywhere KSL is, that's where I'm at.
All right. Jay Stevens, NHL Insider, host of the Utah Puck Report. Check it out. Jay, we appreciate you coming on. Thanks a lot. All right. There's a look at the Stanley Cup Final. Game 1, Tuesday night. And then Game 1 of the NBA Finals, Wednesday night. Ben Anderson, Utah Jazz Insider for KSL Sports, co-host Jake and Ben, will join us at the top of the hour, 9 o'clock, to look ahead to the Spurs and the Knicks. All right, DJ and PK, more in a moment. Stay with us right here on The Zone.
They've been doing it for a while.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
He covers the NHL for Sportsnet. He is Luke Fox.
Now Austin Matthews is obviously very much in the news, and you've seen the Mammoth's name tied pretty closely to Matthews if he were to hit the trademark.
Utah's interest in Austin Matthews is 100% accurate. They would have to join a few other teams that would probably be raising their hand. If he does say, hey, I want out, for sure the Mammoth would be all over that. The Sharks would be over that. The Kings. There would be a number of teams that would want a player like him because they just don't become available very often, especially when they're in their prime. A couple years back, he scored 69 goals, threatened 70, which hasn't been done since the 90s. So a player like that may or may not become available, absolutely, the Mammoth are all over that. They want a superstar.
Catch Jake and Ben afternoons from 2 to 6 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Join Scotty G and the coach Tim Lacombe Friday from 10 to 2 at the Larry H. Miller Summer Games in Cedar City. Celebrate 40 years of a sports tradition. If you're just joining us, great Game 7. Really enjoyed it Saturday night. Thought the young guys came up big for San Antonio. Chet Holmgren, major disappointment. Caruso, major disappointment. There are lessons to be learned. I think it just reinforces everything we complain about in NBA basketball. I don't complain about it, but we keep watching it, apparently. Some of you will say I don't, but you see the audiences, and clearly somebody does. Game 7, what did it show us? You got to keep taking threes. The Spurs shot fewer free throws. They made fewer free throws. They made fewer twos, but they took more threes. They made more threes. That's why they won the game. So if you think people are going to cut back on the three-pointer in any big, meaningful way, good luck with that. Not happening. Are people going to keep tanking? Yes. They'll adjust to the new rules, but trades are hard to make. It's hard to sign free agents, so you got to improve through the draft. And since the Spurs just won with the first, second, and fourth pick, people are going to keep tanking. That is going to be the lesson. If the Knicks can win the finals, maybe there's a lesson in there that there is a different way and maybe you could make it work. Now, there's an argument that they only pulled off what they pulled off because they're New York. And you can only do that in New York and Milwaukee and Salt Lake City and Denver and Indiana and I don't know, whatever other small, cold markets you want to point out. Good luck. Good luck, Detroit and Toronto. You're not going to attract the people New York brings in, so forget about it. I think these lessons are scattered all over the finals. And worst, because this is the one that bugs me the most, I'm not as... if I had to rank things that irritate me, tanking less, three-point shooting less, not that they don't irritate me, they do, but to me, the number one irritant is the stars aren't playing. Starters are sitting every night. And I'm enough into basketball that I'm not just there for the star. I appreciate the second, third, fourth starter, and they do stuff that entertains me. And I like the way they impact games, and it's fun to watch those guys play. And the deeper you get into the roster, the more guys are missing. You got to figure it out. But guess what? The Spurs and Thunder couldn't figure it out. Spurs had injuries, were shorthanded early in the season, early in the series. They lost 2 of the first 3. Thunder had injuries. They were impacted late in the series. They lost 3 of the last 4. I mentioned earlier in the show, I was texting with a friend at halftime when the game was very much still up in the air. I thought the Spurs had the upper hand, but it was far from a done deal. And it's like whoever loses a series is going to say if we were healthy, we could have won it. And they agreed. They're like, yeah, they can fall back on that. It might not be true. We don't have the alternative universe. Maybe if Fox had been able to play early, San Antonio still would have been down 2-1. And maybe if Jalen Williams was there, he'd have gone 2 for 20-something, and they lost game 6 and 7. But nonetheless, it gives you the opportunity to say, hey, if we'd been healthy, we'd have won. So if you think that load management is going to stop, it's not just, yes, do teams load manage to tank? Absolutely, the Jazz did it. But even the playoff teams are going to load manage. And first off, they were already doing it. They've been doing it since the days of Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, Tim Duncan. The Spurs were as far as I can tell, it was 20 years ago the Spurs started doing this. They were the first one to get into it, and then the whole league followed. And it's not changing. And that means everything we watch from the Jazz in the offseason, and let's face it, we're one playoff series and 2 weeks away from the offseason, everything we see from them has to be with that in mind. You know, the whole thought that Walker Kessler is going to play 78 games and Jaren Jackson is going to play 76 games and Lauri Markkanen is going to play 74 games. Ha! No. So you're going to have to build a roster where each one of those guys misses 10, 15, or 20 games. And nobody wants to hear that, and I don't want to hear it. I definitely don't want to hear it. I want to show up every night, and I want to see those guys playing. Well, show up when they're at home, but watch on TV when they're on the road. I want to see those guys playing. But if they each miss 10, 15, 20 games, you're looking at somewhere between, 30, 40, 50, 60 games where you're going to be missing at least one. Now, maybe there'll be fewer, but some of those nights you'll be missing 2 guys. And how do you build a roster? So you tell me who guy 9, 10, 11, 12 is on the roster, and it matters because that's who A.J. Mitchell was. And it mattered they didn't have him out there in the second half to hit a couple big shots. Or in the first half, maybe to build a little bit of a lead and go in up at halftime instead of down at halftime. I mean, they retook the lead a couple times in the third quarter. That game was going back and forth. This is a wildly entertaining game. The one thing I don't like about Game 7s, and this is totally predictable, but the one thing I don't like about Game 7s is that there's less basketball and there's more wrestling. There were so many guys holding jerseys, holding arms, grabbing shoulders, hand-checking 30 feet from the hoop, 5 feet from the referee. And SGA's trying to drive, and they just shove them. Because it's Game 7, and the refs don't want to put someone in foul trouble, call early fouls in the first quarter. If you have the game, or if you can go back and watch it on YouTube or whatever, look at just up like the first 5 minutes until somebody's got 10 points. I mean, like when it was 6-4 or whatever. SGA's trying to drive. This is blatant hand check right in front of the ref. But they know. I mean, tip of the cap for being savvy. They know they're not going to get called for the foul. The refs don't want to put someone in early foul trouble. They don't want to put someone in early bonus. They don't want to decide a Game 7. They're going to let them play. It's largely what the public wants. Some of you are in the rules are rules camp, but it's largely what the public wants. And so they give the public what they want. And the players know it, so there are just so many fouls. And you can hate flopping, but honestly, the play of the game. Yak, we haven't talked about this. What in your mind was the play of the game? I think it's pretty clear. It was a big moment. The Thunder had some momentum, and the Spurs did something. I thought it was Hartenstein's steal the chase down block.
Luke Cornett.
And he comes up with the block on Hartenstein. If you watch it, up top, and the refs don't want to call everything, and I get that. Up top, it's clean, right? Ball, it's clean. But he goes through the body.
Yeah.
If Hartenstein goes down at home with the crowd going nuts, I think he gets the call. He stayed on his feet. He didn't get the call. Everyone knew to nod. They should have. It was a great play. It was a great play. You got a role player. You only get to play a few minutes when Wemby sits. Make a difference. In whatever time you're given, make a difference. It's what we all clamor for. We all want. He did it. But if Hartenstein flops, if he, in the words of the great Brian Dunseth, if he pulls up the landing gear and goes to the floor, which is what SGA does all the time.
And if I recall correctly, San Antonio went right back down the court and hit a three,
he
right?
Stayed on. Hartenstein stayed on his feet and ran back and tried to defend.
But they hit a three, I think, on that ensuing possession.
They did. No, it was a 4-point swing, so it was a 2.
It was a 2,
but
okay.
they did score.
But they scored, and that
But they scored. It was a 4-point swing.
Yeah.
Because I remember, I think it was Reggie Miller screaming 4-point swing. If Hartenstein, and nobody wants to watch the flopping. You don't want to watch the flopping in basketball. You don't want to watch the flopping in soccer. You don't want to watch the flopping in football, for that matter. Don't do it.
Well, and that's the thing about this is there were points in that game where both teams were using that to bait the referees.
Yeah.
But then
because it works.
Sure,
the
it
reason
does.
they don't do it in other sports, it doesn't work as well. The baseball equivalent of flopping is the pitcher grabbing the pitch and trying to pull it back in the strike zone to fool the ump.
You're talking about the catcher.
And the catcher, the automatic strike zone is kind of taking that out of the game, right?
The ABS has gotten rid of framing,
right?
No doubt.
Yes, I know. That's the expression, framing. Well, it's the way he frames the pitch. Stop it. Come on, man. We're not that stupid. Don't talk down to us. Should have flopped. Might have gotten a call, might have gotten free throws. Could have been a very different deal. And then you're dropping back with a set defense and you don't give up a bucket. And it was an 8-point game, but it was really 6. That was a concession dunk at the end. Nobody cared about it. It was over. All right, well, pull yourself together. Wednesday, game 1. And the Thunder can figure out how to fix this. And then now we're going to get the Spurs dynasty. There's no way to stop Wemby. Wasn't it just a year ago there was no way to stop the Thunder? Didn't we all hear that? Heck, we might have even been saying it.
Yeah, the OKC era was
It is
short-lived.
so hard to win 2 or 3 in a row.
Yeah.
Nobody's won 4.
Yeah.
In my lifetime. I'm not old enough to remember when UCLA or the Celtics rattled off their UCLA won 7 in a row. I remember the last one. I remember the 10th one, but I don't even remember their 9th one. And I don't remember any of the Celtics titles. I wasn't old enough. That was before my time. And since then, when have you seen someone win 4? I remember my dad making a big deal when Reggie Jackson and Sal Bando and the A's won 3 in a row. And I do have a vague memory of watching some of those games. I remember they beat the Dodgers in 5. I remember watching some of that. And then the Yankees won 3 in a row, but nobody's won 4. So unstoppable, forever, dynasty. Man, dynasty is, if you win 3 out of 4, that's a dynasty. Even back-to-back in the NFL is a dynasty. I saw people arguing on Twitter over the definition of a dynasty. People, stop it. It's not real life. You don't even know these people, and they don't use their real names. Knock it off. Twitter's for fun. Find a GIF that makes you laugh and put it up there and move on. That's what it's for. Some guy just said something funny, and in the commercial break, I hit him with the, who's the actor? Nick Offerman. Nick Offerman from Parks and Rec. And he's got the little sideways giggle. He's got the total straight face with a big bushy mustache. And just totally deadpans. And then there's just this little glint in his eye and a little sideways giggle. Very funny. Very understated. All right, DJ and PK. We got to take a break. Ben Anderson, Utah Jazz insider for KSL Sports and co-host of Jake and Ben, is coming up at 9 o'clock. We'll run these theories by him. I believe that Game 7 reinforces you must load manage and you must build your roster to load manage. And the Jazz have to do it. Tell me who guys 10, 11, and 12 are. You think they're not going to play much? I think they are, because I don't think guys are going 82. So we'll talk load management. We'll talk three-pointers. We'll talk flopping. There's another trend in there. I'm forgetting all my trends, Jock. Should have written them down. Three-pointers, flopping.
3s versus 2s, flopping, and then
load management. There was one more.
I think it was a 3, right?
I thought there was a 4th one. All right, well, I'll figure it out in the break. We'll have it all organized by the time Ben gets here. I think there are a lot of trends. Tanking. The draft. It was tanking.
Tanking.
The Spurs reinforced.
Yeah.
That series, regardless of who wins, both those teams tanked to get where they are. The Thunder.
The Spurs went 1-4-2 in successive drafts.
And the Thunder, well, actually in 3 out of 4.
Sorry, 3 out of 4, you're right. My bad.
What? They didn't have a high pick the year there wasn't a good draft? Like, it's almost like they were tanking and they were managing that, Yock. And the Thunder, they did trade for SGA, so that's a different deal. But they did get Holmgren with the number 2 pick, and he came up small there at the end. That was a bad Game 7 for him.
He's still 24 years old and got a lot of potential, though.
Okay. You're right.
Go ahead and trade him, OKC.
Well, they're going to have to move somebody.
Yeah.
And part of that will be what do they get back, and now they probably get back less because people will raise an eye. So... But there are a lot of people who'd love to get to a conference final, to a Game 7, so that he could come up short. So you can complain all you want, but he was pretty good to get him there. All right, DJ PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
3, 2, 1. This is Scotty G and Coach Tim LeComb.
Kurt Heelan, NBC Sports, and ProBasketballTalk.com.
You can't talk about the Knicks and their dominance without talking about how futile the Cavs were. But the non-timeout and the issue all series with Harden, I was surprised to see Kenny Atkinson be brought back. Were you?
A little. I think that they genuinely, like, their front office backs him, and they think, look, we got farther than we could have. The weird thing is it looks kind of like they're going to run it back. They don't trade for James Harden. That deal doesn't get done without a handshake deal to extend him. They're not going to let Mitchell go. It's going to be an interesting offseason if they run it back. Right now, that's the way they're talking, but I can't see that being, just seems like they'll be worse.
That seems like the definition of insanity to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you know how that's going to end. You just do. You've got enough data points to know how that's going to end.
And everybody's going to be better, and if you're just the same, you're fading. You're getting worse.
Catch Scotty G and Coach weekdays from 10 to 2. Presented by Mountain Land Supply on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
I started a little brush fire, Yock. I did something I don't usually like to do, but I couldn't help myself. We put up the...
Did you fan the flames of the rivalry?
I did. With a factual statement, I might add.
Well, it's okay.
But nonetheless, I full well knew.
You and I both know the facts don't matter.
I have to be 0% surprised. 0% surprised by the result, but I got to say I was about 5% surprised. So we had the question back on May 28th. Was that Friday or Thursday? Anonymous Big 12 coach says BYU is the best football team in the conference with the best coaches and is the most physical team. What's your assessment of this? I think that was it was either Wednesday or Thursday because PK was here. I remember talking about this. To which Mus Emeritus, who's a longtime listener and commenter, and obviously from the name, a massive Ute fan, says, anonymous Big 12 coach says BYU has more felonies charged than conference championships. To which I responded, and I probably shouldn't have. Actually, it was an anonymous Ute fan, unless you want to put your name on it. And game on.
DJ.
No. But it was Mus Emeritus. I don't know if his name is Bob or Joe or Laverl.
Laverl.
It does seem like generationally, Utah parents have gone away from the Laverls.
Yes, yeah. No, that's
when I got here, it was still happening.
Lavelle, Laverl.
Yeah. When I got here, it was still happening. I got here in the 90s. You could still, but I think the names were changing, but they were still out there, because of a name someone picked in the 50s or 60s, and that person was 30, 40, 50 years old. So, yeah. But those seem to have gone away now. You got way more of the Tanners and the, yeah. So, anyways, Laverl. So then PK catches a stray. It was PK, I don't know, some AI pig or something. I don't know what's going on there, but there's literally a hog, swine with a bad toupee. I don't know what's going on there. Len says Mus Emeritus will be more bitter and angry in 2.5 years when they realize they need a new coach because they ran off Witt and handed the reins over to what's-his-name. Okay. Now, Morgan's catching strays now. Like, hasn't Morgan Scally done enough to deserve a little more than what's-his-name? If you want to go, he's never been a head coach, I don't know how this is going to work out. Okay, fair. We've seen the baton passed from a legend to somebody before, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And the Utes have hit on 3 head coaches in a row. McBride, clearly a very good hire. Urban, clearly a very good hire. Kyle, clearly a very good hire. Hey, they may not hit again. I get it. But I think he's earned a little more than what's-his-name. Worst case scenario, Morgan's an excellent defensive coach. Now, will he be an excellent head coach? Will he be very good, poor, I don't know, mediocre, remains to be seen. Let's let him coach a few seasons and try to figure that out.
I thought you were going to bring up the other factual statement you made. I just saw.
I followed that up.
Okay, here we go.
Not content to play with matches, I had to grab a can of gas. It's amazing. They paid the winningest coach in school history $13 million to go away after an 11-2 season. They used significant rainy day reserves to come up with that money. Now, did I say anything there that wasn't factually spot on, Yak?
No,
It is amazing. He is a winningest coach.
Yeah.
They paid him $13 million to go away, and they were coming off 11-2.
He gets to double dip while coaching at Michigan this coming season.
And he used significant rainy day resources. Yeah. $13 million they didn't have to spend. They could have let him coach another year.
We had Jason Batacao on.
I know.
And the report out there says they used...
Straight from the auditor.
They used $19 million to cover losses to make it look like they made a $4.6 million
Well, I
bonus.
can figure out where 13 of the 19 are spent.
I'm just saying, yeah.
That's just some simple Arizona State math right there.
They've gone from $60.5 million to $5.8 million.
Well, they could be at 19. And granted, the way they're going, the way the costs are going up, they'd burn through this at some point.
They said the next 2 fiscal years, they're going to burn through the rest of that cash.
Yeah, and I get it. The price of poker is going up, and donor fatigue is real. I've talked with people at the highest levels 100% seriously. No cheap shots about that. There was no camera. There's no microphone. They don't want to be quoted. So I won't. But really high-level people not blaming staff and, there's people who do the fundraising, right? And there's administrators over them and all that. They're not blaming them. They're like, hey, people only have so much money. We have to raise so money. The community's only so big. There's all these causes out there people can give their money to. There's no end to the list of nonprofits. I mean, every university that needs money for its athletic department needs money for the rest of the school as well. It doesn't matter if you're the U and you've got the med school. There always seem to be like 4 cranes building something up at the med school at all times. I don't know what it is, but there's always cranes. Utah State, UVU, UC Santa Barbara, ASU, wherever. I mean, everybody's raising money to pay people and build buildings, and you can't get all the money you need from taxes. You got to go out and raise it privately.
I did not see this over the weekend, so I'm reading through some
Carbon Ute. So the guy that cashed checks from BYU is taking shots at Utah again. Everyone is shocked. Worthless troll.
What?
I don't know, man. I got 0 checks from BYU.
The nameless, faceless...
Carbon Ute at Toad Baker.
Yeah, the nameless, faceless Twitter troll mob is ridiculous.
In Scally, we trust at Ficklin for Heisman. Again, long-time listener, long-time tweeter. Make sure to fluff Ryan Smith's pillows before you leave his house, David.
What? What is going on here?
You got to shoot the messenger if you don't like the message. And the message is 100% fact. There's nothing you say about the message, so it's got to be a personal attack.
I agree with that, but
it doesn't bother me at all. Now, Cougar fans rallied to my defense, which is awesome except for one key fact. If you back this up 3-4 years, Cougar fans think I'm fluffing pillows for Kyle Whittingham or Cam Rising because I'm saying good things about him. Well, they won the conference and they beat the snot out of Oregon and USC. They beat the snot out of Oregon twice. They scraped past USC 43-42, then dominated them in the second half of the Pac-12 title game. To be clear, not to lump SC in with Oregon. Oregon took 2 beatings. The winning and the losing, the headlines, that determines what we say, people. We got going on 25 years of this. We've beaten the odds 5 times over. Everybody who's even remotely associated with his business knows it's freaky weird. PK and I know it's freaky weird. We can't even take all the credit for it. We'd be stupid to do that. We've done some good work. We've been super fortunate to really good shows and for reasons out of the host control. There's tons of stories like that in radio. Tons of them. We're fortunate we're not one of those dozens and dozens and dozens of stories. But nonetheless, you don't last as long as we do playing favorites. There's no point in it. You people, some of you are a little out of control due to your massive fandom, which pays our checks, so we can't even control it. We can't even complain about it, or nor can we control it. We can't do either. But there's a lot of you out there, like, it just doesn't pass the sniff test. I've been home listening to San Diego radio back in the day when my parents were alive, driving around town to whatever great aunt and uncle's house to visit the relatives in their 80s. I have funny stories about that. And I'm listening to radio, and they're talking up the charts. They can really go to the Super Bowl this year. Click. No, they can't. I hope they get back to 500. They're coming up short at like 15 of the 22 positions. Are you kidding me? Don't waste time lying to people. Most of you know better. Just tell the truth. And you know the truth is, it's amazing with the red ink they have, which I'm not sure is anybody's fault. It's the way things are going in sports. Everything's accelerating so quickly. And the level of team they're trying to keep up with is pretty high.
Yeah, but
why can't you beat Penn State in the Rose Bowl? Why can't you beat Ohio State in the Rose Bowl? Just totally overlooking. Did you see what they just did to USC and Oregon? Do you know how much money those two have? Are you kidding me?
Things change quick, though.
But that one's amazing.
I agree.
Like, just stomach Kyle one more year. I get him constantly talking about retirement was a bad idea. I told PK at the time, don't crawl out on the limb and predict what Kyle is going to do. He has the right to change his mind. He has earned the right to change his mind. Stepping away is a big decision. He's got a great gig. He loves what he's doing. If he changes his mind and coaches another year, well, that's the way it goes. Didn't see him taking the Michigan job until right before he did. But, hey, another story for us. All right, DJ and PK. Hey, Tripp had my back. You get ripped damn near every post you make, and I'm here for it. You got to be one of the biggest zoobs on this site, especially for a local sports guy. You don't even try to hide it anymore. Yak, you've known me a long time. Have you ever gotten in your car driving home, and I know you replay the show in your mind. We all do that, right? You ever thought, DJ's the biggest zoob? No. You've thought a lot of things. DJ can't pay attention. DJ lost the plot in the middle of that interview. But, again, am I telling the truth, Yak? You've thought those things.
No, I've never thought, DJ, what a zoob. Like that, no. That is never. No. I've produced a show for 12 years.
When I'm out there spending your time, a.k.a. wasting your time after the show, I'll talk about the Gauchos and the Aztecs, but the Utes, the Cougars, and the Aggies? What? I was on my phone yesterday texting with people. Gauchos up 1-0 after 4. I mean, they were running their fourth pitcher out there. They weren't likely to beat Texas, and I don't know what they would have done in a fifth game, which they would have had to win also. They botched it when the number 2 guy, who they pitched in the opener, got beat by Tarleton State. That was the whole plan. The Gauchos have one of the best pitchers in the country. And they were saving him for Texas in game 2. So then he ends up pitching against Holy Cross. That didn't do us any good. I mean, it did. We won the game, but it wasn't going to get us out of the regional. All right, DJ and PK. Coming up next, Ben Anderson. We got 4 theories. I think Game 7 reinforced 4 things that we all don't like about the NBA. They're going to keep happening. Why? Because it's how you win. We'll get to that next. Stay with us. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Joined now by Ben Anderson. You're going to hear Ben. 2 o'clock today with Jake and Ben, right here on the Zone. How are you, big guy? What's going on, Ben?
Jake this week. Jake's out. I'm rolling solo just like you.
Ha. Well, PK's back tomorrow. I'm going to do a couple days. So, long weekend. Yeah. PK had to do a couple weddings, actually. One of them was out of town.
His own or somebody else's?
Somebody else's. All right, Ben. Game 7 in the books. I believe there's about 4 lessons the NBA is going to take from this series in Game 7, and I believe it's going to reinforce everything we complain about in the NBA. But before we get to that, enjoyability factor, I thought that was about a 10. Super impressed by the way the Spurs young guys came through. Castle wobbled a little late. He was really good limiting the turnovers for most of the game, and then stacked a few of them up there late in the game and ended up finishing with 6. Thought he was going to finish with 2 there the way he was going, but then he started coughing it up. But I did think that Castle was good, Harper was good, Wembayama was good, but I can't buy that they are here forever because I was just getting told that about the Thunder a year ago.
Yeah, nobody's here forever anymore. That's what the NBA is teaching us, that, we thought Milwaukee might be a dynasty and Denver might be a dynasty and Boston might be a dynasty. It's just not what the NBA is about anymore. And that's very much by design. The financial rules say that that's what they're trying to accomplish. And you hit your tax aprons so quickly now that you start having to replace some of your key role players, which is exactly what Oklahoma City is going to have to do this offseason. And when you bet on hitting on draft picks over and over and over, historically, that never works. If every team hit on their draft picks, everyone would be really good. But most teams aren't very good, even when they have really good draft picks. So Oklahoma City trying to do it with, the 13th pick and then the 16th pick or the 20th pick, you might find an A.J. Mitchell every once in a while, and that's great. But you're going to run out of luck eventually, and then you're, a 3-man team. And I think right now the league is really favoring depth.
So that was one of the lessons, I think, is that as much as we all hate load management, of all the things people complain about, my number one gripe is I go to the game and I know I'm not going to see 2, 3, or 4 of the 10 guys who should be starting. There's just so many guys missing all the time, and it bugs me. But I get why they game manage. I was texting with a friend at halftime and said, whoever loses this series is going to say we could have won it if we were healthy. The Spurs had injuries early in the series, lost 2 of the first 3. The Thunder had injuries late in the series. They lost 3 of the last 4. So load manage your guys. Keep them rested. Keep them healthy. There's so many soft tissue injuries, so many hamstrings and calves. I just feel like this series reinforced you better limit what your guys do in a regular season and keep them healthy for the playoffs. Any disagreement there?
No, and that's the other part of the dynasty thing that I think is just not going to work, is that you're going to run into injuries. There's just guys are getting hurt more often, it seems like, especially the top players who are playing a lot. And I don't know if it's because of a lack of load management, too much load management, too much practice, too little practice. I really don't know. I don't know if the game is too physical or too athletic. But, these super outlier bodies like Wemby have never lasted very long. So it's probably good that the Spurs are trying to strike now. And we'll see. Yeah, Steph Castle plays a very aggressive style of game, not unlike what Jalen Williams does. And Jalen Williams was hardly available in this series.
To just stay with the injury theme, we're seeing this across all the sports. Pitchers are just, the Cubs have like 10 pitchers on the list at any given time. It's unbelievable how many injuries they've had. The New York Giants just lost a wide receiver, Gunnar Olszewski, feared torn Achilles, which would be their 3rd Achilles injury of the offseason. So either all of this push, science, human performance, maximizing it, maybe somehow they've got guys training the wrong way, or So much is being asked to compete at the highest level, bodies just break down. There's nothing anyone can do about it. It's that hard to compete at the highest level. I don't know what it is, but injuries are just wreaking havoc on rosters in every sport.
And we've also talked to doctors. I know you have as well. And it's speculative at this point, but kids are, specializing in one sport earlier in their life and, putting maybe more in wear and tear on their body in specific ways, or not strengthening their body overall the way you used to when you would play baseball through high school and football and basketball or whatever your other sport was. Now you start specializing in the 7th grade, and what if that has something to do with it? That's not something you can fix with load management midway through the year. So we don't know exactly what's going on. Clearly, if we did, people would stop it. But that's something where you have to be really lucky. And what's worth recognizing is last year the Thunder were extremely lucky. They were very healthy all year, and they won a title. In Boston, when they won their title, they were very healthy. It's the only year Kristaps has really been healthy his entire year. So that's going to be a part of it. You got to be deep. You got to be healthy. And if you do have a couple of injuries here and there, they can't be significant, and you better have somebody ready to step up and replace them.
Really impressed by the way the Spurs shot the 3-pointers. They had multiple guys making multiple big threes. They won that game because of the 3-point shot. And for all the people who scream, there's too many threes in the game, and for the people who scream, man, when you miss threes, you got to stop taking them. The Spurs took 5 more threes. They made 5 more threes. The Thunder made more 2-pointers, made more 1-pointers. They shot more free throws. They made more free throws. But they didn't win the game. The team that made the most threes won the game. So if you think you're going to see any shortage of threes going forward, good luck with that.
And that also might be the reason why we're about to have our 8th champion in 8 years. There is just a higher variance in 3-point shooting, and that's the truth. And OKC was good last year, and Boston was elite the year that they shot it very well. And, they didn't shoot it as well this season, certainly not in the playoffs. So you have a bad series, you can be the favorite and you can lose to Philly like Boston did. So obviously that's going to be a huge storyline going forward. And it also reinforces that you better have 3-point shooters. And I think, if you want to look at a Utah Jazz conversation or what the Angels have done historically, they've really favored shooting in the draft. They'd like to go out and get guys who shoot, which becomes a pretty interesting wrinkle in what the Jazz are about to do 3 weeks from tomorrow. Look at the shooters and who's available at the top of the draft and who the Jazz might like.
Looking forward, Knicks, Spurs. There's an old cliche in the NBA, if you have the best player, you win. Looking at you, Victor Wembanyama. But there's another cliche out there. Hey, young teams just don't win. Have the Spurs cleared that young team thing in your mind by beating the Thunder, or they still got to do it? Castle still might have too many turnovers.
Yeah, I've still got to see it, and it doesn't mean that they're probably not the favorite. And I know they are the betting favorite, but, just kind of emotional favorite going into this. They should be, but they did just play a very brutal 7 games. And as we just talking about, wear and tear really matters. And the Knicks have coasted mostly through the playoffs. They should be fresh. Seems like they're relatively healthy. De'Aaron Fox is clearly playing on a pretty gimpy leg, though he played much better in Game 7 than he had the rest of the series. But you lose a major piece or he's in and out of the lineup and inconsistent. If you get another rolled ankle somewhere else, the Knicks really have a depth advantage. That's where the Knicks have done a great job. They do have star players. I mean, Jalen Brunson's a star, Cat's an offensive star, and then they've got great role players. And then they've got good players coming off the bench, and they can throw a lot of defense at you. This is a different animal than what they just saw in Oklahoma City. And I get that they may not have a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but Jalen Brunson's pretty darn good, and they're going to be coming at you in waves, and that's not something the Thunder could do. The Thunder, as good as they are, had players just simply disappear, like Chet. I mean, he just no-showed the entire series. It was bizarre. And that's not really how the Knicks have performed at all in the playoffs. So this is the next step up. This is not an easier series than the last series they just had.
So you've partly answered the next question because you're Ben Anderson. You can anticipate these things. There's no off position on the genius switch, Ben. Good work. But the Knicks, 11 straight wins, 9 of them by double digits. Some of them not just blowouts, but spectacular. You start winning by 35 and 40 points. That's unreal. Are they that good, or was the East that bad?
A little bit of both. I mean, the East was clearly bad, but not as bad as, allowing another team to win 11 straight games with an average, margin of what you just said, double digits. No teams are that bad. Cleveland's fine. That's not a great team. I'm not a huge believer in it, but they've got a bunch of really good players. And Philly did just beat Boston and did have Joel Embiid some of the series. So it's a mixture of both, but the Knicks are prepared. And look, everyone elevates their game. Nobody flukes their way into the finals. You have to be good and you have to get better. And by the way, the Knicks were good last year. The Knicks beat the Celtics coming off of a championship. And then they gave a very good series against Indiana. And had it not been for some Tyrese Halliburton, heroics, and credit the Pacers, they did make the shots. This might be the second consecutive finals for the Knicks. So they're a very good team. They're a consistent team. They have been not here before in the finals, but they've made deep playoff runs together. And that might be the advantage, just the understanding that, this is a marathon and it's not a sprint, and they're going to be able to, be prepared for this emotionally. Certainly, they've had enough players that have played big games in their careers.
The Knicks famously changed coaches last year after going to the Eastern Conference Finals. The Vegas Golden Knights changed coaches with 8 games left in the regular season. Now they're in the Stanley Cup final. Indiana brought in some old coach nobody had ever heard of, from James Madison, a school nobody ever watches. Went to the playoffs the first year, went 16-0, won the national title the second year. Have these 3 moves just turned up the heat on coaches everywhere? Win now? Who needs a long time? None of these guys need a long time. The coach is the problem, and the coach is the fix.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's a lot of long time in sports anymore. I mean, college football, you've got a new roster every year. So, yeah, you better win, because they'll just go out and buy new players and buy a new coach. Basketball, maybe not quite as much, but yeah, I mean, what's his name? Mitch Johnson now with the Spurs. This is, he's relatively new. This is his first playoff run, and he's coaching excellently. And Mike Brown has been here before. He's had some consistency. So yeah, I do think there is some pressure certainly to win always as a coach, especially when you have high priced rosters and the clock is ticking on every roster in the NBA, because as we were just mentioning, the apron situation makes it really hard to keep a team together for very long. So if you're not reaching your potential, you probably have a really short leash. And especially when you're a team like the Knicks, who James Dolan said were expected to make the finals, if not win the championship, that's a high bar. And Tibbs had not shown an ability to do it.
Yeah. One more series, 2 more weeks, 4 to 7 games, and then it'll be all draft all the time. You think you know how the draft is going to go right now, or you still think there's going to be some wrinkles here?
I think we've reached the kind of nonsensical part of the draft where everyone's just throwing stuff at the wall and see what sticks. And look, every team does their due diligence, and I'm sure teams start to waffle at this point. But generally, you zoom back far enough, and there's not that many surprises. There will be a surprise in the top 5. There will be a couple of surprises in the top 10. But if I had to guess, I think AJ is going to go number 1. I think Darren Peterson's probably going to go number 2. I think Cam Boozer's probably going to go 3, and Caleb Wilson's going to go 4. And I think that was what most people expected before the draft, regardless of who was going to end up in those top 4 spots. There's not really a lot of situations where I don't think those would have been the top 4 guys. And then particularly in that order. And then the bizarre aspect of it is just, I hate the word fit in the draft at the top of the draft. You shouldn't care about fit, but teams do seemingly every year. These guys all fit those positions very well. The Wizards really need a wing, and AJ's sitting right there. The Jazz could use another ball handler and shooter, and Darren's right there. Memphis loves high analytics guys like Cam Boozer and could use another big to play next to Zach Edey, and he's going to be sitting right there. And then the Bulls love long athletic players, and it's Caleb Wilson. It's almost boring in how perfect all these guys seem to fit the understanding of what these front offices prefer. And I mentioned it earlier, David, like the Angels like shooting. Well, Darren Peterson's a potentially generational shooter. I mean, that's his skill set. I know a lot of people are trying to is he Anthony Edwards? Is he this super freak athlete? Don't get me wrong, Ant really shot the ball, especially last year, very well. But that's what Darren Peterson does. He's going to come in and really shoot the ball, and then that's going to be his real strength, and then he'll fill out the rest of his game. The Angels have historically loved that. That's how the Celtics won their title, and I think you're going to see the Jazz certainly look very closely at him.
Yeah, think about shooting. That's what they give you points for, Ben. All the other stuff is great, but you know what they give you points for? Biscuit in the basket.
I once heard an interview with Frank Layden, and he was talking to a radio host, and they said, "What's the most important thing on a basketball court?" And the guy said, "Getting your defense to move is one." And Frank said, "No, you've got to score." Yeah, that's why it's called the goal, the field goal. You've got to get the ball in the basket. That's the only thing that matters.
I want rebounding, and I want defending, but you better be able to score it, or it's all over.
You could rebound every shot, but if you finish with 0 points, you're not winning.
Yeah, exactly, right? Exactly. Has anybody got a good feel for what's going to happen in free agency trades in the summer, or is that just too far away and everybody's got to see the draft work out first?
I think you're probably going to see the league held hostage a little bit by Giannis. That generally is what happens. A couple of teams will be lined up and not willing to make major moves. So that's Golden State. That's probably Orlando. I know the report came out yesterday that Oklahoma City's probably not going to go after Giannis, but step back for a week, zoom out and start to wonder hey, is this championship window going to last very long? Giannis would certainly help it. So I think teams will wait for that. But I am curious, David, with the new draft rules and how hard it is to know what's going to be coming up for you via the lottery anymore. I wonder if we see more actual draft night trades, big trades on draft night, because that is, you know who's on the board, you know what the pick is. It's not just guessing, could this be 1 through 16? That becomes really difficult. There's not a lot of value in that. But once you actually get to draft night or post lottery, I wonder if we start to see a few more trades go down that are kind of blockbuster trades, when generally those would happen, a little bit earlier into July versus late June.
So if that were to happen, say, let's combine your last two answers here. If that were to happen with Giannis on draft night, it doesn't make any sense to me that Giannis, the Wizards, would make a deal. They're too far away. It doesn't make any sense that Memphis or Chicago would make a deal. There's only one team in the top 4 that looks like they could be a playoff team and win a playoff series next year. It'd be Utah.
I think if you're the Jazz now, kind of, weirdly, it's such a bizarre spot to be in. I think the number 2 pick is too rich for Giannis, which is really crazy to say. I mean, Giannis 24 months ago was one of the 3 best players in the NBA. And truthfully, I think he probably is still top 3 or 4. But he is a little bit oft injured, and, you're trying to manage that. And as we were just talking about, the injuries are the quickest way to kill your playoff hopes. But if you think you could get Giannis for 50 games during the regular season and then get him healthy in the postseason, he's worth whatever you could throw at him, to be honest with you. But the question comes, I do think the Jazz want to see this roster together for a few years, at least a season this year. But if the Jazz decided next year they wanted to chase Giannis and Giannis was still in Milwaukee, or 6 months into this season, the Jazz decide to get to the trade deadline and want to test it out, they've got some big pieces they could move, and they've still got some future draft capital. I do think there's a world where if the Jazz decided that was the direction they had to go, you could probably get there without including this number 2 overall pick. And then again, you're stacked. You're talking about building the most talented roster the team's ever had. And I'm not sure they don't already have that or aren't building towards that already.
I'm against the Giannis trade. And the reason isn't Giannis. The reason, not that I'm not a little worried about his injuries, because I am, but the biggest reason to me is his salary. The last 3 teams standing, which all have a chance to win the title, no matter what you think of them. They all had a chance. And the Thunder, not anymore, but they did. There was only one player on those 3 rosters who made more than $40 million. It's Karl Anthony Towns at 53. Now, there's a lot of guys right up against it between 35 and 40 million. But you look at the teams that put a lot of money into a couple positions. They don't have the depth to build out the team. They're missing pieces. They're too vulnerable to injury. They don't have depth, and they just haven't gotten there. And I've seen the same thing in the NFL. Like the top 10 paid quarterbacks are all over 50 million, and only 5 of them made the playoffs. You can't put a team around them. The guys who are winning Super Bowls are getting paid $40 million. Now in LA, they're finally paying Stafford, and his salary is going to go up over 50. It'll be interesting to see if they're still an elite team. When they won the Super Bowl, he was down around 40, and I think Seattle was paying their guy like $33 million. How did he do it? Well, they had more money to put a team around him. So Sam Darnold didn't have to be Patrick Mahomes. He just had to be a B-plus quarterback. He had to be above average on the borderline of being very good, and that was enough because they had more money. And so I just don't think bringing in someone and paying him $50 or $60 million, they're paying 2 $50 million guys. I think that's a problem for the Jazz right now with marketing into Jackson, but that's the only reason they got Jackson. That's the only reason Memphis was willing to trade him.
And, you look at last year's Oklahoma City Thunder, who wins the title, and they have 2 players still on their rookie contracts, and Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren. And you look at the Spurs, they've got 2 players still on their, 3 players still on their rookie contracts, including Wemby, Castle, and Dylan Harper. So what I do wonder is how teams are going to treat the top of the draft. Does somebody value Cam Boozer more because he's going to be good from day one over AJ DeBonsa, who's going to take a couple of years, or a Darren Peterson, who's going to take a couple of years, especially a team like the Jazz, who are relatively close. They're certainly way closer than Washington or Chicago or Memphis. So would the Jazz value some readiness and an ability to get 4 years out of a player at a really low contract comparative to, other starting level, high level playoff contributors? Cam Boozer at $13, $14, $15 million. If he's one of your 3 or 4 best players, which now is what Steph Castle is and Dylan Harper is and obviously Wemby is, that really gives you a lot of flexibility around the fringes to make moves and improve your roster and maybe even overpay in a spot. De'Aaron Fox is clearly overpaid for what he contributes, but you can afford to have him and he's a nice luxury at this point. If you can overpay for somebody because you have another contributor on a really low contract, that's super valuable in today's NBA. And would you draft accordingly? Or could that be the deciding factor? Sometimes we say, well, fit at the top of the draft, if we think two players are in the same tier, should be the deciding factor. What if the ability to contribute right away is that? We see that a lot more in the MLB draft, where a guy who's 1 or 2 years away might be favored for a team that's pretty close versus the high school prospect. Do we start to look at the NBA draft a little bit more similarly?
I think the MVP in the league this year should have been Jalen Brunson. He took $35 million. He could have leveraged his way to more. He knows how to do it. He chose not to. His agent I don't know if he liked the plan, but he went along with the plan. And what a break for the Knicks that they have Brunson on $35 million instead of paying him an extra $10 or $15 million more than that. Major break for the Knicks.
Helps when your dad's a coach on the team, and I think your agent used to work for the GM. So yeah, it's kind of nice when those things work out for you. But hey, that's you got to find any advantage you can. And yeah, the Knicks got fined for tampering. They lost the 2nd round pick, and it seems like that was probably a pretty good trade for them.
And if they were paying Brunson $50 million, that'd be 15 more than he's getting right now. Would they be able to afford Bridges or Hart? And pretty easy to assume that one of those guys wouldn't be there, and then how different are things?
Well, if those guys win a title, it's because, Hart has a huge series or Bridges has a huge series, and they shut down a Harper or they shut down a Castle. I mean, that's what it takes. It takes Julian Champagnie he's got to be on a minimum contract. I don't know how much Julian Champagnie makes, but it can't be very much. He hit 6 threes in Game 7. I mean, you have to have those stars step up. That's just part of the game. Steve Kerr has to hit a big shot against the Utah Jazz. It's just your role players have to step up huge, and that's where you got to be able to maybe pay a little bit extra here or there to have them step up and be ready in a series like this.
Julian Champagnie makes $3 million this year, and he'll make $3 million next year.
Yeah.
Team option. I'm pretty sure they're going to pick that up.
That's a good deal.
Huh? I really know the league, don't I? That was a rock solid assessment by me right there. All right, Ben, we appreciate it as always. We will hear you more on all these topics today at 2 o'clock. Normally with Jake, but not now with Jake. Just you flying solo. You're genius, unimpeded.
Well, a lot of draft talk, a lot of finals talk.
Okay, we'll look forward to it. 2 o'clock. Thanks a lot, Ben.
Thanks, DJ.
All right, there's Ben Anderson. Hear him today at 2 here on The Zone. When we come back, everything you missed in this show next. Stay with us.
3, 2, 1. This is Scotty G and Coach Tim LeComb.
Kurt Heelan, NBC Sports, and ProBasketballTalk.com.
You can't talk about the Knicks and their dominance without talking about how futile the Cavs were. But the non-timeout and the issue all series with Harden, I was surprised to see Kenny Atkinson be brought back. Were you?
A little. I think that they genuinely, their front office backs him, and they think, look, we got farther than we could have. The weird thing is it looks kind of like they're going to run it back. They don't trade for James Harden. That deal doesn't get done without a handshake deal to extend him. They're not going to let Mitchell go. It's going to be an interesting offseason if they run it back. Right now, that's the way they're talking, but I can't see that being, just seems like they'll be worse.
That seems like the definition of insanity to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you know how that's going to end. You just do. You've got enough data points to know how that's going to end.
And everybody's going to be better, and if you're just the same, you're fading. You're getting worse.
Catch Scotty G and Coach weekdays from 10 to 2. Presented by Mountain Land Supply on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
No, because they definitely want to beat me, and I want to kick their ass. So they love them, and you can always love them before and after. I got ties to San Antonio, and you appreciate the people, you appreciate the journey and all that other stuff. But at the end of the day, just like they want to beat you, you definitely want to beat them.
Slacker Radio Headlines brought to you by Trajan Wealth. Call Trajan Wealth today, your local trusted financial fiduciary. Call them at 1-855-TRAJAN1 or visit their website at TrajanWealth.com. That might sound like a cliche from Mike Brown, but you know why it's a cliche? Because people say it all the time, and you know why they say it all the time? Because it's true. If you don't win, you're getting fired. Mike Brown is an NBA lifer. He was in Cleveland. He was in L.A. with the Lakers. He was back in Cleveland. He was in Sacramento. He's had people say, come on up to the GM's office and bring your security card with you. Bye-bye. So, yeah, he wants to win. That's how you keep the job. He is very well aware that he got the job because somebody got fired for losing in the conference finals. Now, that may seem outrageous to you, but that's what happened. And furthermore, looks like it's a little justified because now they're in the NBA Finals. And you can say, well, it's a different year and it worked out and they would have done it if Thibodeau was there. And maybe they would have. We'll never know. But I'll bet you right now in the owner's luxury suite, they're thinking they're pretty smart for changing coaches. They're in the NBA Finals with Mike Brown. So, yeah, he was in San Antonio as a Spurs assistant, and he's got friends there, but you got to win. Game 1, Wednesday night. Oh, one more hot take. I don't know how hot this take is. Well, I'll let you decide. Maybe it's a medium warm take. But why do people constantly criticize the NBA's credibility? The games are fixed. The playoffs are fixed. The lottery is fixed. Man, a lot of people are addicted to something that apparently is just pro wrestling because it's all scripted. And I think in the last 3 games of this series, we saw why. We saw why people always say that. Because one, refereeing is really hard. I know, I've done it at a very low level. It's difficult. It just is. And anybody who's done it should be nodding right now. Yeah, it is difficult. And number 2, NBA referees are uniquely horrific. They are bad. What are they doing this summer? They need to be in the gym at 7 a.m. like Gordon Hayward. They need to be watching film and reffing games and going over their horrible calls and learning from their mistakes all summer long. Give them a week of vacation, just like the players get, and then work them all summer. They got to be better. That goaltending call that they missed in Game 5 when the ball was on the rim, I mean, it's basketball. You know what you should be looking at? The ball in the basket. It was a freaking easy call, and they butchered it. The ball was on the rim. What else is there to look at? That was horrific. Horrific. And what happened when the coach tried to keep his calm and tried to ask for a review? We've got review now, so we won't make mistakes. They freaking ignored him. He's standing there where he's supposed to be, making the signal with his hand, looking right at the ref, who freaking looks right at him and ignores him. Horrible. And then, in Game 7, the best player in the game, Victor Wembanyama, has the ball at the top of the key with nobody around him, nobody screened away. You got at least 2 of the 3 refs can see him. They can probably all see him, but at least 2 of them can. Maybe the guy on the baseline screened. And he starts to drive, and he hits the defender in the face with an elbow. And they call a foul on Hartenstein's face. Are you kidding me? Are any of you watching the guy with the ball? He just hit a guy in the face. The coach comes out on the floor and signals for review, because if he just stands on the sideline and behaves, he knows, as recently as Game 5, he'll get ignored, and they tee him up. And the late Tom Nasalki told me 30 freaking years ago, do you know why refs give tees? Because they know they're wrong and they're embarrassed and they don't want to admit it. He says, watch when tees happen. Coaches let a lot of close calls go. They know they can't argue everything. But they lose their mind when they butcher the obvious stuff. And a lot of the times, that's when they get the tee. The ref doesn't want to admit he blew it, so he gives a tee. Tell me that isn't what happened right there. There was no reason to give him a tee. Yeah, he came onto the floor. But when they didn't come onto the floor 2 games earlier, the coach got ignored and didn't get the review. What are they supposed to do? You guys are going to screw it up one way or another. Maybe the commissioner doesn't mind being called a liar and a cheat, but my guess is he does, because most people don't like that. But that's the reason why. It was just bad refereeing. They screwed over both teams. That's what PK always says. If you spend too much time complaining about the refereeing, you're just wasting your time, because there's a lot of calls and they miss them both ways, and you don't have to examine every call. Well, the goaltend benefited San Antonio, and they won Game 5. And the foul on Wembanyama did get reversed because they did review it, but the technical foul that they didn't deserve, that was a free point in a close game. Gave them a free point. They got to fix the refereeing. Spend all summer fixing the refereeing. Do these guys ref games and watch tape all summer? Because the thought that they're off for four months going to the beach or whatever. No. These are supposed to be the best refs on the biggest games, and they're blowing it, and we all know it. And refereeing stuff off the ball, and there's so many fouls, and you can't call them all. And the guys who called 51 fouls and awarded 70 free throws in Game 5 got criticized because nobody wants to watch that. I get it. But then you watch all the fouls they didn't call in Game 7. In some ways, they got the refs coming and going. right? If you call every foul, you're going to get criticized, but if you don't, you're going to get criticized. It's a problem. It's the nature of the game. I don't think that part can be fixed. But you got to get the easy stuff right. And they didn't in the biggest games with the best refs. And they weren't trying to cheat anybody. They were just bad. Earlier in the show, we talked with Ben Anderson about the NBA Finals. We talked with Jay Stevens about the Stanley Cup Final. You can get both of those wherever you get your podcasts. KSLSports.com. Go to YouTube, the KSL app, the KSL Sports app. They're everywhere. Spotify, Apple, wherever. Catch up on that. Jay Stevens said his bracket was really good until Vegas took down Colorado. That really blindsided him. He didn't see it coming. Yes, Vegas had a coaching change, and yes, it has powered him. But with 8 games left, they got Hart back as a goaltender. And he's been on fire. And they're unexpectedly in the Stanley Cup Final. Having said that, Jay expects Carolina to win. Now, both these teams defend with some real passion and some real intensity. They don't wait to defend in front of the goal. They go get you in the neutral zone. Don't let them inside the zone. They don't get into the attacking zone. They don't get into dangerous areas. So, there's a chance you'll see a super physical Stanley Cup Final, but there may be a limited number of shots. A bunch of guys crash into each other in the middle of the ice, beating the snot out of each other. But the whole thought, you're going to see a bunch of 5-4 games, I probably wouldn't hold your breath on that. Goals will be at a premium. And who takes penalties? Who takes penalties? And who cashes in on a power play and gets a goal? Probably Carolina. The Eastern Conference was better than the West this year, and Carolina was the best team in the East, the second best team in the league. But you never know. Vegas got a hot goaltender, and they're on a roll. Jay Stevens, wherever you get your podcasts, check him out. Injuries keep piling up. Giants, a third Achilles injury in the offseason. Gunnar Olszewski. Got it. It's feared he's torn his Achilles, so they'll take a look at that. Later today, we might find out about a big NFL trade. The new year starts at 4:01 Eastern, so 2:01 Mountain Time. And at that point, the Eagles can trade A.J. Brown. Lots of speculation. New England, we'll see if someone else swoops in, makes a play for him. The Rams were interested previously, seem to have backed off. The Chiefs have been thrown out there because they need a big-time receiver for Mahomes. We'll see if somebody swoops in or if A.J. Brown is going to the Patriots. The roster moves that the Eagles have made as they build depth in that room suggest that he's gone. And he wasn't particularly happy. And it didn't look like teammates have wanted to talk about him when they were available to the media here recently. So expecting something maybe as soon as 2:01 when Ben comes on the air this afternoon. We talk college sports. Big 12 Conference is the first to be in full alignment, have all its member schools agree to sign the participation agreements with the College Sports Commission, but it only kicks in if all 68 schools sign, and there are plenty of schools that haven't and mostly have the more money, and why would they? There's also a huge argument that the players need to collectively bargain something. Why would they? They're making a ton of money. It's like Major League Baseball. Why would they? The argument from Bryce Harper is baseball should because they got a good thing going. He said the sport, they can't lose that momentum. Baseball has great momentum now. And he says, wherever you're at, whatever they're coming with, whatever we're coming with, referring to the owners and players, you have to come to an agreement before anything bad happens. It's not like 94 where there's nothing else to do. Ton of streaming options. You can watch sports worldwide now. Tons of gaming options. There is stuff to do. People walked away from baseball in the 90s, disgusted by the lack of World Series, didn't come back until everybody got juiced up and starts hitting home runs. Bryce Harper, the voice of reason. Hard to argue with what he said, and nonetheless, these sides have a habit of really fighting. So we'll see where that goes. College World Series underway for softball. Baseball's in the regionals. We'll know the 16 super regional teams by the end of today. Some we already know. The SEC already has 5 of their 16 teams in the league. 12 got into the NCAA baseball tournament. 5 have made it to the super regionals, and they might add to that total today. In softball, 12 of the 16 teams got in. 9 made it to the super regional. 9 of the 16. 16 teams in the super regionals, 9 of them were SEC teams. 8 teams went to Oklahoma City for the College World Series. 5 of them were SEC teams. We're down to 4 teams. 3 of them are SEC teams plus Texas Tech. Is the SEC going to keep spending this much money on baseball and softball? Or are they going to reallocate some of that money to football because it's getting outspent in football, and they're now 2-8 in college football playoff games. It just means more. Is that football or is that softball, baseball, women's gymnastics, men's and women's basketball? The SEC's made progress in those areas or dominated. They have 7 of the last 8 college baseball champions. Be interesting to see what they do. All right, DJ and PK, we'll come back. Your feedback is coming up next. Stay with us. DJ and PK, this is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Join Scotty G and the coach, Tim Lacombe, Wednesday from 10 to 2 at Mountain Supplies Grand Opening in Eagle Mountain at 766 East Split Rock Drive. Yuck, how many days in a row do you think you've told me to put a bow on it?
A lot.
The 12th and final segment of a 4-hour marathon. Yuck has certain things he does all morning long, and one of them is tell us to put a bow on it. The package is almost wrapped.
That's what it is.
Question of the morning, are the Spurs unstoppable now? U-State Iceman Jack Dunbar sends me, Pee Wee Herman, I know you are, but what am I? This guy has your answer, he says. Captain Cody says, the Knicks get the sweep. Never pick a sweep, people. Come on now. How many times do we get a sweep in the NBA Finals? I mean, how many times do we get a sweep in any series? It's always surprising. And the Knicks have had 2 in a row. I just can't believe they're going to have a third. Yuck, do you remember our last sweep?
I don't.
Last year went 7. I remember that. See if you can find that, Yuck. Let me know.
Per Mr. Alex Naples over here, who's quick on the draw, he says 2018.
Really?
Golden State over Cleveland. Okay, I do remember that one. Remember, Golden State was at the peak of their powers. LeBron had dragged Cleveland as he often did.
Through a weak Eastern Conference, but they didn't have. Yeah,
didn't have
and
enough.
Durant was there, and the Warriors were loaded.
Correct, yeah. Draymond, Durant, Steph, and Clay.
2018, so almost a decade removed. LeBron got swept by the Spurs in the first time he was there, and the Lakers swept the Nets. The Rockets swept the Magic. Okay, when's the last time an Eastern team swept a Western team? Good grief. Sixers swept the Lakers because the Lakers had injuries, and that was 43 years ago. Come on, East. Get it together. It's remarkable how long the East has been bad. There's got to be a reason. I need a theory for that. I don't have one. I got to get on that. Are the Spurs unstoppable now? Sorry to say, but Wemby has maybe 3 years, if that, and then his feet and ankles will start to fail him. I'm not wishing anything on him. I'm just saying realistically that's what's going to happen. Yes, he's a huge problem when he's on the court, but is he going to have a long, healthy career? I highly doubt it. Well, there are a lot of big guys who struggle like that. Embiid is the current example. Now, a lot of people tell you Embiid's carrying a lot more weight than Victor Wembanyama. But back in the day, Ralph Sampson was built. He was pretty spindly. He was not a thick guy, and he ended up with knee injuries. So there's certainly examples of that. I don't think there's any question there are examples of that. That could be Wemby's future. Not sure I want to predict that right now. But if you want to, knock yourself out. Are the Spurs unstoppable? Dustin, yes, they will win in 5, maybe 4. Back to the sweep talk. Jesse, no, but they are super young and can only get better. Ooh, I could argue with that, Jesse. They're going to have to pay guys. And that's going to hurt their depth, and then they will not be better. Now, the young players can get better. Dylan Harper can be a better version of himself. 2-3 years from now, for sure. But when they have to pay him, and Wembanyama is getting close to kicking in on that big-time deal. Now, they can jettison Fox, I suppose. He's at $37 million. Big Vic, they got him next year at $16.8 million. But that would be back-to-back if they pull it off. If. And then pay the man. And then Castle comes up a year after that, and off we go. Harper a year after that. Here we go. And they got Champagne at $3 million. And they can get him next year. So financially, they'll be fine next year. Then what happens? It gets ugly. Hard decisions must be made. Jada, are the Spurs unstoppable now? No. Go New York. I wonder if we have more Knicks fans or Spurs fans here. I mean, there's New Yorkers everywhere. There's so many people, and then they fan out all over the country. Plus, I would think a lot of people here root against the Spurs. Small market team that's won 5 championships is trying to win a 6th. It's gotten super lucky in the lottery 3 times. I would say that the Spurs have, 3 of the 6 best lottery picks of my lifetime. Magic at number 1, great lottery pick. Lakers got him. Shaq at number 1, great lottery pick. Lakers eventually got him, but he was Orlando's pick. Lakers got him in time to win 3 championships. And Miami got him for the 4th. Poor Orlando. Sorry about that, Orlando. LeBron was a great lottery pick. Obviously number 1 there. And then Duncan. And Victor Wembanyama. Now, Cooper Flagg, David Robinson. Is David Robinson next at 6? You could Patrick Ewing. You could argue Penny Hardaway looked like a great pick, but injury shortened his career. You could argue David Robinson would have been Patrick Ewing. Really good career, great stats, huge figure in the history of the franchise, but not a champion. And it didn't look like Robinson was going to win a championship until Duncan showed up. So that definitely polished his image. All right, out of time. Coming up next, it's Scotty G and the coach, Tim LaCombe. Stay with us. They're next.